Great. So, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the June 18th meeting of the San Mateo County Harbor Board of Commissioners. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Here.
Commissioner Olsinger?
Here.
Commissioner Caravano?
Here.
Commissioner Tucker?
Here.
President Bernardo?
Here. Open session, new business, identification of district real property negotiator. I'm going to designate Peter Grinnell as a temporary district real property negotiator just for the purposes of tonight's meeting, to go into closed session, just for the purposes of going into closed session.
I have a point of order.
Yes.
The Brown Act requires that we vote to designate a real property negotiator, and we have done that in the past. We voted for a real property negotiator, and I would like us to do that tonight. It is part of the Brown Act requirement.
For the purposes of previous closed session meetings where we have designated another real property negotiator, we've also used Mr. Grinnell as our temporary property negotiator for the purposes of closed session. So we could do that and then change it in closed session if we wish.
Well,
So-
I want to remind the board that at a previous meeting, we agreed that our general manager, Peter Grinnell, would not be the appropriate real property negotiator for the fish buying leases.
I hear
Point
you
of
and I
order, Mr.
understand.
President.
Yes.
Commissioner Brennan is referring to discussions had in closed session. I believe that's
I
inappropriate.
am not. Through the president, I am not referring to a closed
Okay.
session discussion.
Okay, let me
I would
just...
also ask if we can simply defer to legal counsel for the district as to whether or not the Brown Act requires a vote of the full board as to who will be the designated negotiator.
It indicates that you must advise who your real property negotiator is, and up until this point, it has been Mr. Grinnell.
Thank you. And that's been a designation by the board president, correct?
My understanding has been by the entire board throughout my tenure as your attorney.
Thank you.
Thank you. Then I will continue that, and we are going to go into closed session, and we will probably be out in, I would say, about 45 minutes or so. Okay.
Mr. President, I'd like to recuse myself from the closed session due to financial conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you. So we're going into closed session. We are back in open session, and we are under new business continued. Item 3, reorganization of Harbor Commission selection of officers.
Mr. President, if I may,
Yes.
I'd like to place a nomination in the name of Pietro Paravano for president.
I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Does Pietro have to accept? I mean, does he have to say whether or not he's going to accept first before the vote happens?
After the vote, he doesn't have anything to do except before the vote.
Okay. Are there any questions?
I have a question.
Okay, Commissioner Brennan.
So maybe the staff can correct me, but it's my memory that Pietro was president of the board, then Jim Tucker was president of the board for a year and a half, maybe 2 years. I don't remember exactly how long, but it was an extended stay. And since then, President Bernardo has been president of the board, which means that if Pietro is president of the board again, it would be out of turn. So I just wanted to point out that this is not following the board's process, which is to rotate board presidents so that everybody gets an opportunity to serve as president. And it is my turn. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you.
Well, if I may, with 5 members on the board, if there were a strict rotation basis, it would take 4 years, and the 5th year would be someone's seat sitting on the board. So it seems to me that there's no turn per se. You've served 2 years. How would you be eligible for president?
Because Pietro was president, you were president for almost 2 years, Bernardo's president now. So I am the next person that should be president if we are rotating the office. And then the next one up would be Commissioner Holsinger so that he has a chance to serve. Then we would go back to Pietro Paravano as president, Jim Tucker as president, and so on and so forth, depending on who's on the board.
Mr. President, with all due respect, I would suggest, and perhaps legal counsel for the district can confirm, that it's my understanding that the president is selected by the board, which suggests that that's a democratic process of nomination. Second, if there are other candidates, those would be apparent as well too, and that we then vote on that, and then it's a matter of majority. And while there may have been some semblance of rotation historically in the past, I doubt if it's been followed strictly for all purposes. And frankly, with all due respect to the president of the board, I can only imagine he can hardly wait to rotate out. So I believe that we have a nomination and a second. There can be certainly other nominations if someone chooses to nominate someone else, as happened the last time I was here on the board and we had a process. And we proceed forward on that basis. So nomination second. If there are no other nominations, I'd call the question.
I have one more comment to make. So just as an example, the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors does do a rotation process for the president of the board. That's their process. And in the past, that's also been the process of the San Mateo County Harbor District. And I'd also like to point out that the last time we had an election for officers, I was blocked from getting any seat as an officer, and Commissioner Tucker took both treasurer and what was the other thing? Secretary? I've forgotten now. You took 2 titles so that I would not have one. What was it? Treasurer and secretary, right?
Do you not know the officers of the board?
I can't
Okay,
remember what,
let's
it was
not have it-
Holsinger, I think, that wanted you to have 2
Okay, Commissioners,
titles.
if you don't have any other questions or comments, I have a question, a procedural question. Commissioner Tucker mentioned if there aren't any other nominations. Do we vote first, or do we put in another nomination while this is going on, procedurally?
You have a nomination and a second. I haven't heard any other nominations, so
Okay.
you can vote.
So could there be a nomination while there's a nomination and a second, or should this vote happen first and then?
No, there can be more than one candidate nominated.
Okay. I understand the point. I'm sorry, Commissioner Brennan, are you finished?
Mhm.
Okay. I would like to say I do understand Commissioner Brennan's point, and for that reason of rotation, if you will, I'm going to nominate Commissioner Brennan. With all due respect to Commissioner Paravano, I'm going to nominate Commissioner Brennan. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, I hear a motion and a second. Okay. So procedurally, we have a motion and a second for Commissioner Brennan. So I'm kind of struggling with the procedure now that we have a motion and a second for 2 candidates.
So
Jean?
I would suggest that you just call and each person indicate who he or she intends to vote for, and then you see if you have either candidate who has received a majority.
Okay. Let's have a roll call, please.
For whom?
Let's go in the order that the nomination was made. Let's have it for Commissioner Paravano first.
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Paravano?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
No. So the motion carries for Commissioner Paravano.
Mr. President, the next position in order would be that of Vice President of the
So a
Board.
question, just a point of order question. So we don't do the vote on Commissioner Brennan then?
Correct, he already received a majority vote.
Okay. Okay.
I would
thank you.
nominate Commissioner Jim Tucker for the position of Vice President of the Board of Commissioners.
I will second it.
I will nominate Commissioner Brennan for Vice President.
I'll second.
I hear a motion and a second. So let's do a roll call on, are there any other nominations? Okay, let's do a roll call on Commissioner Tucker.
Commissioner Brennan,
No.
Commissioner Holsinger,
Aye.
Commissioner Carabano.
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker.
Aye.
President Bernardo.
No. Motion carries.
Mr. President, I would nominate William Holsinger for Treasurer Secretary.
I will second it.
Okay, I hear a motion and a second. Do I hear any other nominations? Okay, I'm gonna nominate Commissioner Brennan for that position. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I hear a motion and a second.
Mr. President, I would raise a point of information.
Yes.
My colleague, Commissioner Brennan, who has been nominated for Treasurer Secretary, does not vote for the bills and claims and has not been there to see the bills and claims for this past year. I don't know how she would be treasurer and not see the bills and claims.
We would have to make some special arrangement, which would not be that difficult to do.
I don't see that happening, Mr. President.
And I
Okay.
would like to review the bills and claims.
Okay, thank you. I would like to not have a debate on things that are in the future right now. I want to talk about the motion. So why don't we do a roll call, please?
On which one?
On Commissioner Holsinger was nominated first, correct? So Commissioner Holsinger, please.
Commissioner Brennan,
No.
Commissioner Holsinger.
Aye.
Commissioner Carabano.
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker.
Aye.
President Bernardo.
No? Motion carries. Okay, so we have our new officers. Congratulations. So, let's trade.
Oh,
Effective July 1st.
I'm sorry?
Effective July 1st.
Oh, I thought it was effective now. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Okay, I thought it was tonight. Okay, moving right along here. Item 4, proclamation for Aronson, Dickerson, Cone, and Lanzone. Mr. Grinnell.
Yes. I am both very pleased and very sad to bring this item before you. Sad because of the imminent departure of Gene Savory as district counsel and the firm of Aronson, Dickerson, Cone, and Lanzone, and their service to the district, which goes back as far as 1989. I am pleased to present this as a very, at least on my account, very sincere appreciation of her service and that of the firm to the district through all kinds of times and situations. And without belaboring the point, I just bring this to you and ask for an approval to adopt the proclamation.
Mr. President, it will be my distinct pleasure to make the motion to adopt the resolution and proclamation.
Thank
I'll
you. I hear a
second.
motion and a second. And before we do a roll call, I would just like to say a very, very heartfelt thanks to not only the entire firm of Aronson, Dickerson, Cone, and Lanzone, but especially to Gene Savory. As we all know, the job of district council, any district council or any city attorney, is to protect and defend the district and from all types of exposure and litigation. And I think you've done that masterfully and with such dedication and commitment to the district. And I'm really, really thankful for everything that you've done. And I'd personally just like to say thank you for everything.
And Mr. President, let me add, if I may, that we appreciate the work under some very, very difficult times this past year. And you came through for us, and I sincerely appreciate that. I will always sing your praises as I have in the past. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I join in thanking both Gene Savory personally and the law firm of Aronson, Dickerson, Cone, and Lanzone as well. And I would simply add, please let Mark know that his name was taken but not in vain.
Thank you.
Conflict.
Okay, so let's have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Carabana?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye. So where is the proclamation? We have it. Okay. I'd like to read it. I would like to read it. Okay. Proclamation, San Mateo County Harbor District, in appreciation of Aronson, Dickerson, Cone, and Lanzone. Proclaimed by the Board of Harbor Commissioners that, whereas the firm of Aronson, Dickerson, Cone, and Lanzone began its relationship with the San Mateo County Harbor District with the appointment of Kenneth Dickerson as District Legal Counsel in 1989. And whereas Mark Zaffarano succeeded Ken Dickerson as District Legal Counsel in 1998. And whereas Gene B. Savory succeeded Mark Zaffarano as District Legal Counsel in 2011. And whereas Robert Lanzone, Kathleen Kane, and Kyrese also provided valuable supporting service to Mark and Gene, respectively, in assisting the district. And whereas most recently, Gene Savory has served the district, its governing board, and staff with dedication, distinction, and good humor in addressing numerous challenges, challenging concerns. And whereas Ken Dickerson, Mark Zaffarano, Gene B. Savory, Robert Lanzone, Kathleen Kane, and Kai Reese have provided wise counsel to protect the interests of the district and the Board of Harbor Commissioners, and have always sought to maintain the district's compliance with applicable laws and limit the district's liability and involvement in legal actions. And now, therefore, be it known that the Board of Harbor Commissioners hereby expresses its appreciation and thanks to the partners and staff of Aronson, Dickerson, Cone, and Lanzone for their many years of service to the San Mateo County Harbor District. Witness my hand this 18th day of June, 2014, signed by the entire commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, my firm and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's my privilege.
Okay. Continued business, item 5. We now have to select a law firm, and we have Hanson Bridget LLP to provide legal counsel services and approval of contract. Mr. Grinnell, your report, please.
Yes. What's before you is a recommendation to select the firm of Hanson Bridget LLP of San Francisco to provide legal services to the Harbor District, and also to approve a contract with the firm of Hanson Bridget to provide those services. Stephen Miller of the firm has been designated by the firm to assume the position of district counsel, if you so approve. He's here tonight and can answer questions and perhaps say a few words if he wishes.
Thank you. Why don't we do that and have him just say.
Thank you. Delighted to be here. Honored that you've selected us to serve the district. We understand we have big shoes to fill, and we'll try to do so with a portion of the skill and capabilities that our predecessors have provided you, and look forward to working with you all and serving the district. That's really all I have to say. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. We might have a few questions. So, commissioners.
You've seen the agenda packet with the proposed engagement agreement?
Yes.
And you're satisfied with that engagement agreement as put in the agenda packet tonight?
Yes, indeed. I've worked collaboratively with your general manager, and we're ready to proceed with the agreement that you see in your packet.
All right, thank you.
Mr. President, I would move that the selection of the law firm of Hanson & Bridget LLP be selected to provide legal counsel services and approval of their contract. So moved.
Thank you. I hear a motion.
Second.
and I hear a second. Any other questions?
I have some questions.
Okay, Commissioner Brennan.
So I have some process questions. These are really more for the general manager, so you don't have to keep standing if you want to take a seat. Or you can.
I'll stand here in case something comes up.
Okay, thank you. So that the public understands the process better, I would appreciate it if the general manager could explain the process for selecting the new council. Was there a RFP put out, or how were firms notified about the need?
Yes, Mr. President, I'll
Yes, Mr.
respond.
Grinnell, please.
Yes, indeed, there was a request for proposals issued publicly. We received 6 proposals. They're reviewed by the Harbor Commission, and this is the outcome of that process.
Okay. And did the Harbor, how did the interview process work? Could you explain to the public?
Mr. President, point of order. She's asking the general manager to describe a process that took place in closed session.
Okay, let
But
me
I guess-
just
let me
remind my
rephr-
colleagues.
let
Okay,
me
I just want
rephrase it.
to say this once tonight, just once, for the record. I would urge all of my colleagues, I'm not singling out anyone, I would urge all of my colleagues to please be very careful about talking about anything that happened in closed session. Okay?
Here's a rephrase of the question. For the public's information, were applicants interviewed?
For the record, yes.
Okay, and how many?
As I said, there were 6 proposals. There were 3 of the firms actually interviewed.
Thank you. So I just had a couple of things that I wanted to mention. With the 3 firms that were interviewed, Mark C. Watson was the lowest cost at $185 an hour. BBK, Christopher Diaz
Mr.
was
President, point of order.
$275 an hour.
Commissioner Brennan is
And-
discussing things that were part of a closed session confidential packet at open session in violation of the Brown Act. I would respectfully,
Excuse me.
through you, ask you to stop Commissioner Brennan from violating the Brown Act,
So
or
I just-
identify clearly that she is.
Okay, so if I could
Commissioner
just
Brennan,
finish.
yeah, you've just been reminded.
So Hanson Bridget, which of course is Steve Miller, who's going to be here with us, is their hourly rate is $3.45 an hour, and that is included in this document. So I just wanted to make the public aware of that. We have been paying something closer to Mark C. Watson's hourly rate.
Mr. President,
So-
would you please note that Commissioner Brennan is violating the Brown Act?
I'm just giving the name of the attorney, that's
Okay.
all.
Okay.
I'm not giving any content. So I just wanted
That's
to
why he keeps
make it
saying
clear to
that.
the public that we are looking at a large increase in our legal costs. We, this past year, spent over $180,000 in legal fees, and our district has some very significant budget deficit issues. So I am concerned about the accumulating legal costs. I'm not directing this at Hanson Bridget or at Steve Miller directly. I'm just felt like I needed to vocalize for the public's information that we are looking at possibly doubling our legal costs. So I just want to make sure that that's clear to everybody, that we are getting ourselves into quite a different situation with legal fees. So that's all. Thank you.
I call for the question, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so there is a motion and there was a second, so why don't we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Carabano?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye. Motion carries. Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. Look forward to it.
Okay, moving right along. Item 6, renewal of district insurance policies.
That would be with me, but I thought you guys would be longer in closed session, so I told them to come at 7.
Okay, so why don't we skip them for now, and we're going to move to item 7. And item 7, I do have a public comment card, which we'll get to in the order of the public hearing. So right now, I declare this hearing open. And this is a public hearing to fix and adopt the final fiscal year 2014-15 operating and capital budget by Resolution 18-14 pursuant to Harbors and Navigations Code 6093.1.
Mr. President, as the maker of the motion last meeting that was passed, I would also then rise to be the maker of the motion to adopt Resolution 18-14.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Yes.
Yes.
Since we're in a public hearing, I think I'm obliged to mention that proper notice has been given.
Thank you. I was going in the
Excuse
order,
me, I
actually.
apologize.
Okay, thank you.
And also, as a point of order, we have to close the public hearing before we can have any motions to pass the budget.
I defer.
Okay.
I
Thank you.
have a point of order
Yeah.
question, I guess. Why did we approve the budget at the last meeting if it wasn't finalized? Why did we do that? There was a 4-1 vote to approve the budget. What was the purpose of that vote if we're looking at the budget again here tonight? I'm confused why it's back.
I'm going to ask Ms. Jean Savory to kind of explain how this has been the process for our for passing the budget. The budget is brought up during every meeting, and it's moved forward every meeting, and tonight is the final vote. Ms. Savory, can you please explain that as well? I mean, I know I kind of just did, but that's kind of...
You outlined
Sorry.
the process. Last meeting, the commission indicated its acceptance of the budget and general support of the budget, and this evening is the last public hearing, and this is your time to take final action on the budget.
Thank you. I'm sorry for stepping in.
So we
And if I
didn't,
may also note, Mr. President, that we did not have the resolution prepared at the last meeting that we needed to, so this is a formality.
so
That's right.
just to clarify, we did not need to do that vote at the last meeting? Is that, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Are we going to, is the general manager going to tell us about the changes in the budget?
Yes, we're going to go in order of the agenda here, and that's part of the agenda. So I'm going to now move. You're all kind of jumping ahead of me. So started with Commissioner Holsinger and continued. So let's go now to, we're finished with B. Proper notice has been given. So now we are at C, which is staff report and recommendation, Resolution 18-14 for budget fiscal year 2014-15. Mr. Grinnell, I do believe you have a report, yes?
A very brief one. There are only 2 changes since the last meeting, the last time you reviewed this in public. And those changes are as follows. Number 1, the estimated revenue from the Education Resource Augmentation Fund has been increased. The difference is $800,000 added in new estimated revenue.
Okay.
The reason for that is that staff further reviewed past history of ERAF reimbursements to the district and have found for a number of years that in fact we have tended to receive that kind of level of reimbursement, and so it was felt reasonable since the budget is a working document and a whole estimation anyway, to include that. So that's item number 1. Item number 2...
Can I stop you right there? I'm sorry. For the benefit of those who don't know what an ERAF is, can you please explain what an ERAF is?
Yes. The Education Revenue Augmentation Fund was created by Governor Wilson back in 1992, and it requires that a share of property tax revenue that would go to all local governments in the state, counties, cities, special districts, goes to the state of California. This was done at a time of fiscal concern in Sacramento, and this was put into operation. It's been there ever since.
Thank you.
And so the way this works is there are estimates made at county and city levels for these taxes, and money is taken from the tax pot right off the top and goes to the state. By the end of the year, there are recalculations, and if in fact what was taken was an overestimation, there is a reimbursement. And that's typically what has happened.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. I'm sorry,
Okay.
you were at your point number 2.
Sure. Point number 2, there is on our agenda tonight, item number 11, which refers to our interagency agreement with the San Mateo County Resource Conservation District. And we only very late in our board process were able to receive the proposal from the Resource Conservation District, which you do have before you. And that, as you will see and deliberate on tonight, calls for something over $47,000 if you so choose to move forward on it. Staff felt that for purposes of the budget deliberation, we should insert that money in the budget if it turns out, just to cover the base, that the board decides not to proceed with this. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. The money will simply not be spent. It'll remain in your general fund. But we felt obliged, therefore, to add that, well, we totaled it up at $48,000. So there is an additional expenditure of $48,000. So those are the 2 changes.
Otherwise, everything else is the same from the last meeting, then, Mr.
Correct.
Cornell, right? Okay. Thank you so much for that report. Before I get to commissioners' deliberation, I want to get to public testimony. Okay, and there is one. I have Mr. Bud Ratz.
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge Peter in his letter of transmittal in terms of really setting a good context for the budget. However, there's some parts of it I wish he had been, for the benefit of the commissioners, a little bit more realistic, and 2 parts I will refer to. Number 1, the sort of the positive statement that the Harbor District has $40 million in assets. It may have on paper, but that's quite different than representing a market amount of money and so on. It's sort of like presenting a balance sheet with just one side of it, just the assets. The second thing are his comments about the unrestricted funds, which I will continue to talk about. By your own accounting of the March 31st investment report, you have $6.8 million in terms of unrestricted funds that you have obligated through previous actions, e.g. accounts payable, et cetera, down through the employment termination benefits. So for your own fiscal planning, I really encourage you to think about that you have $6.2 million that is truly available in terms of funding budget deficits and funding major future obligations in the, like forthcoming the next year's debt payment to the Department of Boating and Waterways. You're in a better position now than you were the last time I talked, because unfortunately in some aspects the building has fallen through, which left you with 4.8, and now you're basically at 6.8. The other thing is that I will talk about again, I really encourage you to evaluate the budget process prior to the commencement of the process this coming December, January. I would encourage you to include a forecast of changes in fund balances and a forecast of what the funds are, how they're going to be used, et cetera, to develop a true capital budget separate from the operating budget, and to make the operating budget basically a budget for a list of continuing operations and exclude one-time things that come in and various that. So your budget will be basically in 3 categories. The operating budget for continuing operations, one-time events that come through, and your capital spending. And the document that ties all this together is a statement of changes in fund balances, which should be forecast for a minimum of 3 years, hopefully for a forecast of 5 years. The second thing I would encourage you to do is to develop a committee to work with the strategic budget planning process, composed of not only members of the commission, but also members of the public, to be a true working committee with the consultant on that process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ratz.
Mr. President, if I might make a point of information, I just want to correct what I heard and
Sure.
consider a misstatement from Mr. Ratz.
Sure.
He referred to several significant amounts of money as obligations. As a matter of fact, each of those, with one exception, which is the boating and waterways restricted reserve for collateral on our loans. All the others are assignments that were made at the discretion of the Harbor Commission, and which you can modify at your discretion as and when you see fit. And so they're technically not obligations in that sense. And I think that's important for the public to realize.
Thank you for the sort of the clarity of definitions, and I know that, and that's why, I mean, I really love the you know, on the back of the budget, the glossary,
Yeah.
because there's so much terminology and the nomenclature. Different people use different nomenclature. One word means something else to someone else. When they hear restricted, that means something. So, it's really, you know, I just want to thank staff for trying to put us all together on the same page in terms of the glossary. So
Mr.
we are
President,
now at,
if I may?
Yes, Harbor Commission questions. Is that where we're
No,
next?
Before we get to commission statements and remarks, I'd like to move to close the public hearing at this time.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Let's do I need to do we need a vote on closing public testimony?
Yes.
We do. Okay. I'm sorry. So I hear a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Carolano?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye. So public testimony has now been closed. Now we are at commission deliberation. So commissioners.
I have some questions when it's my turn.
I have comments, no questions.
Well, for purposes of discussion, I'll put a motion on the floor that the budget for the fiscal year 2014-2015 be passed as presented.
I will second it.
Okay, so there's a motion second. Let's get to questions. So motion second, Commissioner Brennan.
So I have a question about ERAF, which the general manager spoke about earlier. If, through the president, if I could ask the general manager, in the past, have we ever included ERAF, which is, I think, it's not a for sure thing, it's just we're hoping to get it. Have we ever included that in the budget, in past budgets?
That's a good question. Mr. Grinnell?
Yes, I believe we have. I can't remember which years we did. Okay. Was it all? Okay.
Which years?
Most of them, all of them, I can look back.
Most of them, so I'm hearing most of
We
them,
have
if not all
all
of them.
included.
Okay.
Because when I've looked, the question is, was it always added at the very last 11th hour like it was this time, or was it added earlier on?
It was added earlier on.
Okay, thank you. Well, I did want to note that there is this attachment, which is included in the board packet, item 7, at the front of the budget, where presumably the general manager and staff, I don't know who wrote it, but I assume the general manager, provides a letter and gives budget background, financial highlights, budget highlights, and information about unfunded termination benefit liabilities and the future outlook. I don't recall this cover letter being provided at past meetings. If I'm wrong about that, somebody tell me, but.
Commissioner Brennan, I do recall that Mr. Grinnell did say at, I don't know which meeting it was, that he was preparing a summary for this particular iteration.
So
I
it's-
do remember that, because I'm trying to remember if you go back a couple meetings, Mr. Grinnell, please jump in here, but I believe he said that he would give a summary and then the actual more full version is going to be in this particular iteration. Mr. Grinnell, is that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Commissioner Brennan, for bringing this up. As a matter of fact, what we're doing here is indeed a bit of a departure from past practice. We have always provided a transmittal letter or a memorandum to the Harbor Commission and the public. For example, we have here such a memo from me to the board and the residents of San Mateo County, dated June 20th, 2012, another one June 19th, 2013. And basically, it's a transmittal communication saying, here's the budget. And it starts with budget highlights and so on, and moves on. Now, what we've done this year, which makes it a bit of more of a departure, is in the interests of transparency. And I must say that I got the benefit of some discussion with President Bernardo about this, that we felt that it would be in the public's better interest to be a bit more informed about what the Harbor District does and a bit of a background and how it enters into and major items of concern in preparing the budget.
Thank you. And if I could interrupt real quick, and I don't want to get credit for this because I do want to say that the public had a lot to do with this too. The feedback that we got from, for example, Mr. Ratz and other members who said, we really have to start clarifying a lot of this more, and don't make assumptions that the public will know a lot of this, that, really, really parse it out and explain everything. And so I don't want to take the credit for this.
Exactly, but that's well said, and indeed, I recall Mr. Ratz making a similar kind of comment, all to the good. And so, in fact, we do have, a bit of background, which we didn't have previously, financial highlights as distinguished from budget highlights, and then, of course, a little statement about what the future looks like in the short term, since this is an annual budget. So that's the reason why this looks a bit different from past transmittal letters. But there it is. And that's the reason why.
Okay. And so a question, who does the district have to provide the budget to? To the state, to the county? I'm just curious about where this finalized budget will be delivered.
Yes, good question. There are several places where it needs to go. By statute, this budget must be to the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors by August 1st. And so with passage of the budget tonight, staff will make sure that the budget gets to the county in plenty of time. Now, beyond that, it goes to the state controller. It goes to our creditor, the Division of Boating and Waterways. It goes to the City of South San Francisco in view of our relationship through the Joint Powers Agreement relative to Oyster Point Marina. It goes to public libraries, selected public libraries. It certainly goes on the website where it is now, or the previous one. It goes to a couple of other departments, which escape me, but if you wish, we can provide the complete distribution list for it.
Okay, maybe next time we do the budget, that list could be included, you know,
Good idea.
somewhere for people to see, so the public knows where it
It's a
goes.
really good idea. In addition, for transparency purposes, that's really good.
Just so there's some awareness. So I really do appreciate the effort in the letter that was put together, a cover letter is what I'm going to call it. And I do see it as a response to suggestions made by the public, and I think it's great that the staff and the board are being responsive to the public's need for information. And I know that President Bernardo also stressed that we have greater clarity with our budget, so I appreciate his input on that as well. So I wanted to really emphasize that, and I'd like to see us continuing along those lines. There are some concerns that I have about the content of the letter, and while I really appreciate the context, there are some issues with the content, and I need to comment on those. My comment's going to be brief, so we don't have to worry about me going over the 5-minute rule. So the summary comments, or we'll call it the cover letter, which is item 7 of the current June 18th, 2014 agenda, specifically about fiscal year 2014-2015 final budget, paints what I would describe as a misleading and deceptive picture of the Harbor District's financial situation. The summary implies that the district has $11.5 million free and clear without any outstanding obligations. This is simply not the case. The structural operational deficits, continuing debt payments, emergency projects and repairs such as the 2013 replacement of a leaky sewage pipe under Johnson Pier and the recent 2014 Pillar Point Harbor sewage spill pipe repairs, and the ongoing need for capital projects puts the district in a severely constrained cash position. Beginning with 2015-2016 fiscal year, it is vital that the strategic business plan be completed by the beginning of the 2015-2016 budget cycle. I'm voting no on the fiscal year 2014-2015 budget because it reflects wishful thinking and does little to reduce spending. I think we needed to do a lot more to bring down our recurring costs, and unfortunately we weren't able to do that by our deadline, and that's all for my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other comments?
Yes, thank
Commissioner
you.
Holsinger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciated hearing from the one public comment, his reference to the over $50 million in assets that the district has. And I also appreciate the comment that it is $50 million in assets on paper. Indeed, the shortfall that this current budget has of $1.18 million, $1,183,000, is on paper in a similar way. I would note that our depreciation expense is $603,000. That's a non-paper fiction as well too. I would note that when we use money out of our budget to pay for capital repairs, we don't reduce the depreciation expense on an ongoing basis throughout the year to reflect the fact that we've taken care of that obligation. So it is a paperwork process that is required in order to give an overall complete picture. If we take that out, we are then down to under $500,000 in shortfall. I would also note that the projected share of real property taxes we will receive this year is now at $6 million, or that we will receive by the end of this fiscal year, is $6,726,000, roughly, and that we've projected for the next fiscal year our share as being $5,113,000. That is a difference, if my math is correct, of $1.6 million, over $1.6 million. And as I commented at the last meeting, I don't believe the real property values in San Mateo County are going down. I believe they're going up, and that is going to be and is reflected in increasing real property taxes to all of the businesses and homes and other properties in this county. So if you take that intentional underestimated tax and add that back in so that our projected share of real property taxes is the same in the coming fiscal year as it will be in this fiscal year, we end up with a budget surplus of something over $1 million, a little less than $1.1 million. So on paper, we have over $50 million in assets. On paper, we have projected income of $9 million. On paper, we have $11.5 million in the bank. I believe that this is a balanced budget. It's a responsible budget. I appreciate all the work that staff has put in, all the work that's been put in by not just administrative staff, but everyone else that's been relied upon. And I think this shows that this district, this agency, is in the best financial shape of any public agency in this county. Thank you.
Mr. President, just very briefly, I've made many remarks on the subject, and I don't want to bore my colleagues. But again, there seems to be continued confusion about fund balances and line item balances. We have between $10 and $12 million, depending on how you figure it. The only restricted funds we have is the 1.4 or 1.7 million for the Department of Boating and Waterways loan repayment. Tonight, in bills and claims, I'll present to my colleagues a payment, which is our annual payment, and our debt will be down to $5.8 million from an original $19 million when I first came on board this commission. We've never missed a payment. We've never been late on a payment. You know, right now, the only restricted fund is the 1.7 million for the Department or the Division of Boating and Waterways. All the rest of those funds are restricted because we made them restricted. For example, when we sold property, we wanted to purchase our own building, so we put the money in an account that we call the building fund. We put it there, we can take it away. The philosophy behind that is when you put money in a savings account as an individual, you are reluctant to take that money out because you know it's there for a reason. If you leave it in your checkbook, you'll spend it, most likely. Most of us will. I certainly will. So we took it and earmarked it for different funds so that we would think twice before we went in there and took money out of that fund. So that's all loose money that we could take out whenever we want to for a good reason. Those are the kinds of things that we did with this budget, and I'm very, very pleased with it. The augmentation fund, they'll be continuing additional funds to us. As my colleague has said, the property taxes will go up, and we'll be in better shape than we have ever been. But the hue and cry was always that, well, listen, when you have $10 million in the bank, and this goes back 10 years, when you have $10 million in the bank, why don't you give it to the state and pay off the debt? You know, some people might do that, but a prudent business person doesn't do that. He or she saves the $10 million for a rainy day. Something the governor's trying to do now. It's been long anticipated. So this budget is very responsible. It's very prudent, very factual, and I'm very pleased with it, and I intend to vote yes on it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Commissioner Carbone.
Yes, thank you. I also would like to voice my support for the 2014-2015 budget, which is before us tonight. And I, having been through the budget process many times, I feel that this year there was very much of an additional segment or component to this budget process, which allowed us to adapt and change a lot of our budgetary items and needs, and hold off on maybe some future capital projects. And that is the public. And I would like to under the acknowledgements that was written, I believe that staff had a hand in writing this overview, which I felt like it was definitely a very accurate perspective and assessment of this year's budget. Besides my fellow commissioners and management from finance, staff from management and from finance, and the general manager, I would like to acknowledge the assistance and input from the public in this year's budget process. So I think that has really helped us fine-tune this budget process, and so that way we can continue on with our success at both facilities in serving the public. They're both at Oyster Point Marina and at Pillar Point over on Oceanside. So those are my comments.
Thank you. And I'd like to just end by saying that I echo my fellow commissioners' comments on the supporting of this budget. I agree that this is also a responsible budget, and I'm further encouraged knowing that we are going to embark upon a strategic planning process that will encompass long-range planning in terms of our finances. So I think that that's even going to strengthen, in addition to the, bringing us down to the 5 million where we're at when we started at 19 million many years ago. I feel very confident that that we're on the right path, and I'd like us to continue down that road. So I'm going to be supporting this as well. So if there are no other comments, I'd like to have there is already a motion and a second. Let's have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Opposed?
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Terrabano?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye. Motion carries and the budget passes. Okay, we are now at, we skipped an item because we were waiting for some folks to arrive, and that was item 6, renewal of district insurance policies, and I believe they've arrived, right, Ms. Harris? So would you like to introduce this item and explain what this is about?
Okay, this is our annual renewal of our commercial insurance. And, we have both Janet McDougall here and Pamela Lauper, if you want to go ahead and come up. And I'll have them explain the summaries and everything else. If you do notice, there are some increases in the property, equipment, contractors, and the crime section. And part of that is because last year, we were able to finalize the fixed assets, and so we took a look at the fixed assets and looked at the property and thought that we felt like we needed to increase the insurance amounts that we had on some of the property, the docks and the buildings and such like that. So that accounts for a lot of the 44% increase that you see here. So it's not so much cost.
Mr. President,
So
for the record, before they speak, I would just point out that information was not in my packet. But I'm okay and I'm prepared for it.
It's the binder.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, I was looking for more of a report. Okay, that's fine, I'm fine.
Thank you. Thank you. So again, it's the reassessment. That's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking about nomenclature here and glossary of terms. So
Yes.
we want to be very clear. Okay, that's for the reassessment. Thank you. I get it. Okay, I wanted to point that out to everyone.
As it was kind of reviewing what we have. So I don't know if I want to use the word assess because we didn't have someone come assess it, but
Okay.
we kind of looked at the fixed assets and
Thank you.
determined that some of the values weren't quite what they needed.
It's reevaluated.
Yeah.
If you want to use another word, okay? So just so we're all clear. So would our guests like to make a brief presentation to further explain what we're going to be voting on tonight?
Good evening. My name is Pam Lauper. I'm the CEO at McCorkle Insurance Service.
And Janet McDougall. I'm the Senior Account Manager at McCorkle, handling the insurance for San Mateo Harbor District. And so we provided a formal proposal, and I believe you all have a copy of that. But we wanted to, I think, focus on the premium summary to start with, to look at the premiums that we have provided through travelers. So on the premium summary page, we given 4 years of your premium history for your property and casualty insurance. As discussed in the last board meeting, and I think approved, we had met with Travelers, your current carrier, who's been your carrier for many years, and we got the approval to move forward with Travelers, and they agreed to a flat rate, and that's what they provided. So all the rates were flat on your property and casualty. Your workers' comp did take a little bit of a base rate increase. Workers' comp in California, per the Bureau, is ticking up a little bit, and that is reflected in the base rates. Among other factors, the management liability remained pretty flat. It did take just a little bit of tick up just because the EPL environment, and that's mostly the employment practices liability in California. And then we structured it a little differently per your approval in the discussion. We took out all the commissions from the carriers and charged a 3-year broker fee, which was approved, which was pretty equal to what the carriers were charging. And so that's included in the total. So the total premiums went up about 16%, but as noted in the notes, so did some of the exposures. So as Marietta did state, the property premiums increased due to the property values. So Travelers did a valuation on all your buildings, and that's reflected in the statement of values. And so some of them did go up a little bit based on the structure, the construction, the replacement cost. And so I think that the values now more reflect accurately the exposure for each of your buildings for replacement cost value. One other improvement that we did on the buildings and on the properties, we added agreed values. So we took out the co-insurance percentage, which I think is an added improvement because now you don't have to deal with co-insurance. We all agree on the value. The auto premium increased just a little bit. We added 2 new vehicles in May, so that's pure exposure increase. Rates stayed the same. So that's the premium. I think the exposures are accurate, and another part of the workers' comp increase was your XMOD increased about 8% or 6 points. It's still a very good experience mod.
Explain that in a little more detail, please.
So your experience mod is really your losses based on a formula provided by the Workers' Comp Insurance Rating Bureau, and all carriers are required to include that in California. There's different bureaus for the different states, but in California, it's the California Workers' Comp Insurance Rating
And is
Bureau.
that based on a job, that's based on the description of the work done as well as the number of employees?
Not the number of employees. So it takes your class code, and it takes an expected loss rate, which is everybody in that class code, what they expect that loss rate to be in your governing class is 9016. So it takes that, it uses the formula, it takes your losses for over 3 years minus the first year back because they're 2 green, and it comes out into a formula. And so that's how they get the percentage. And
that increased 8%?
It did. But it's still 85, which is a credit mod. So I
Explain what that means, the credit mod.
So when one is equal. One, if you have 100% mod, that means you're doing the same as everybody else, what you're expected to do. Anything above 100% is what they call a debit mod. And that means you're getting debited. You're doing worse than what they expect everybody in that class code to do. If it's below 100, you're doing better. So it's a credit. So in this case, it's still it's up a little bit from last year, but it's still, really good. Your losses are trending. The bad year is going to come off in 2000. So the bad year that had the most losses is going to come off. You got a new year coming on, which is a pretty clean year. So next year it should go down. We'll do a mod projection about 6 months in, so we can kind of give you an idea of where we think it's going to fall for the next year. But you're still performing very, very well as a whole.
So I'm sorry, I'm looking at your premium summary and looking 2011, 12, and 13. And which is the year you said was a bad year?
For losses.
For losses, yeah, I know, I understand that, but I'm comparing it to premiums.
I want to say.
2012, you were over the 1.
Yeah.
So that's going to drop off at the next renewal. So you'll have 2013, 14, and the projection for 15.
All right, and that explains why I wasn't picked up last year.
Correct.
Thank you.
And the basics are ticking up. Your payroll is up 12% as well. So Zurich gave as many credits as they did last year, which was 10% plus your experience mod. So they stayed, relatively. They like your business. They like your account. They like the way you're performing. It's just that the bureau's requiring those rate increases. California is going through. Workers' comp is very cyclical, and we're kind of ticking up a little bit, and then we'll come back, and so you ride the wave. I think is kind of.
But I think the good news is, you're in a good spot.
Yeah.
Again, the performance of the plan. And obviously, you can't predict the future, but, you're looking at a couple good years that have trended, and hopefully that'll continue.
And we did go out to market on the workers' comp just because I wanted to be able to compare. So there was some markets out there. They all either declined because of the class of business, or some carriers that wanted to play in it. They have to have your whole business. They don't want to write monoline workers' comp. We did get an indication from a mutual group. However, that's a mutual group where it's not guaranteed cost. You have risk, so you could have to pay into the group if there's losses go over expected. So I'm not sure that's where you guys, the guaranteed cost is probably a little bit better, more stable for your.
And last year, we just got a check back, I think, this week or last week for $10,000 for the workers' comp. Came out and did an audit. So
Okay.
they come out and audit the payroll.
Right.
And if it's under what we thought it was going to be, then we get a refund. So we did just get a refund.
$10,000 refund.
Yeah.
Excellent. I love hearing those things. Love it. Love it. Thank you. That's good news. So are there, I'm sorry, are you
No,
finished?
No, good. If there's any
Okay.
questions?
I was just going to say, commissioners, any questions on this?
No, I was concerned about the increase in the workers' compensation, but they've answered my question satisfactorily. Thank you.
Good. Any other questions?
We have so few people that if we have one person, it's pretty much.
Right, yeah.
10%, right? Almost 5%, so, other people, so.
Commissioner Brennan, you had a question, I think.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. So total program costs, it says for 2013 was $352,000, and then for 2014, $408,000. And that, how much of an increase is that we're looking at
It's about a 16% increase.
from last year?
Correct.
Okay,
So there was exposure increase as well.
I got that.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
thank you.
Does that 15% include the $40,000?
Yes, it does.
So it includes the $40,000 for the fee that we're paying them.
Okay,
In
thank
lieu
you.
of the, it's not
Yeah.
commission, yeah.
And the fee, did that include this going out and looking to see what we might have exposure on and where we need to increase our coverage?
It's loss control, it's audit review, it's contract review, it's coverage placement. We've brought on a work comp consultant now who will help, with any claim issues, and we'll monitor the claims and make sure they get closed. And so that's another added service, and all that is included.
You guys must know our district pretty well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Call the
Okay.
question.
Yes.
Do we have a motion and a second to approve the? I'll make a motion to accept the proposal and authorize entry into the insurance renewal as presented.
Hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
I will second it.
Okay, I hear a motion and a second. If there aren't any other questions, can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Commissioner Garvelia?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Harden?
Aye. So, motion passes. Thank you so much
We
for
appreciate your business.
presenting
Thank you.
tonight. Thank you.
I have a point of order.
Yes.
We have other people that are waiting to give a presentation from the Resource Conservation District, which
Okay.
is item 11.
Okay.
And I was wondering if it would be possible to move that up so that they could leave earlier.
That's a really good idea. So why don't we go ahead and move item 11 up, then we'll go back to 8, 9, and 10. So we're going to jump ahead to item 11. And I have one public comment card, but let's hear the presentation first and the report. Then we'll go to public comment and then commissioners. So item 11, amendment to interagency agreement between the Harbor District and the San Mateo County Resource Conservation District. Mr. Grinnell, can you please explain this item?
Certainly. As you know, we have an interagency agreement active between the Harbor District and the San Mateo County Resource Conservation District, whereby the RCD has been providing water quality-related technical assistance to the Harbor District and concerning Pillar Point Harbor. The harbor staff and the RCD staff have been working closely together, and what you have before you tonight in Exhibit A is a proposal developed by the RCD as basically an extension of an expansion of our existing interagency agreement. What it basically calls for is to continue work now being done, but move into some more areas that we feel jointly deserve our attention to maintain and try to solve some problems relating to water quality at the Harbor District. If you'll turn to page 2 of the staff memo, you'll see scope of work and budget. That really focuses what's going on here. And as you can see, I'll read this for the general public as well. There are 4 basic tasks. One is inner harbor water quality monitoring. That's going to be continuing and extending. Then a new item, harbor outfall water quality monitoring, which is aimed at dealing with the upland sources of any water quality problems in the harbor. The RCD has clearly shown through its multi-year efforts that the problems in the harbor, which seem to show up on beach watch and other such monitoring efforts, actually originate on the land, upstream, if you will, from the harbor. Then there are 2 more areas of emergency spill response and technical assistance, all of which totals $47,752. That would be added to the budget, and as you will recall, we did include that in the budget that you just adopted. We have representatives from the RCD here tonight, and I think it would be excellent if you heard from them directly to make a summary presentation of really what they expect to be doing with the Harbor District. So through the chair, I'd like to turn it over. Introduce yourselves both and have at it.
Thank you. And thank you, Commissioner Brennan, for thinking to bring us forward. We were just kind of looking at the agenda, calculating the time on that, so thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Kellix Nelson. I'm the Executive Director of the Resource Conservation District, or RCD, in San Mateo County. And with me is Brittany Bulkey. She's our Water Quality Coordinator. So I just thought that I would provide a little bit of context for why we brought this proposed scope to you. And then Brittany can answer any questions you might have about the details of the scope, since she did most of the heavy lifting in preparing it. So a little bit of history. As you know, there have been many theories and various efforts regarding fecal bacteria contamination at the harbor for many years. And the RCD was involved with a multi-year study to determine the primary sources of bacteria, and your staff was also involved with that as part of a technical advisory committee. That study was completed with some recommendations for next steps. And during that process, not only did we become more familiar with the harbor and your staff, but also with some of the issues and opportunities there. And what started to happen was we would have ideas and enter into some sort of agreement, and then we would get a call from somebody on your staff, or we'd have an idea for how to improve that work or how to adaptively manage something. And so we're frequently doing small contract amendments or providing technical assistance for things that are learned along the way or maybe outside of our scope of work. So what we proposed to Peter was that we have a broader agreement where we can be a partner to you for resource protection at a higher institutional level, and try to address. The study that we did was limited to fecal bacteria. we have been asked by your staff if it's possible to answer some questions about other possible pollutants entering the harbor. We also have, in addition to Brittany on our staff, Irina Kogan, who couldn't be here tonight, is a geologist on staff who formerly worked with the National Marine Sanctuary developing their oil spill response program, and she convened the various state and federal agencies and nonprofit organizations and coordinated their efforts for oil spill response and prevention. So naturally, it was reasonable that some questions would come her way about how to develop spill response prevention plans and that sort of thing. So the goal of this scope of work is to try to be a little bit more comprehensive about our partnership and how we might be able to provide those services to you. Also, what is written in here now is a more regular feedback mechanism so that we're budgeted to come present to you directly and provide you with some of the data and the findings so that we can be available to you, commissioners, directly more regularly. I think that's probably about it for the general overview. Is there anybody who has any sort of questions or thoughts about that for Brittany or for me?
I do. Hi, Kelly.
Hi.
Hi. Nice to meet you, Brittany.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, thank you very much for your desire to continue to work with the Harbor District. We really appreciate the work that you've done in the past, and it certainly has provided us with a baseline and a lot of data that we could use in the future for decisions that affect the water quality inside the harbor. I was curious as to the more of the specifics of the type of contaminants that you'll be testing, and this is found on
The outfall task 2?
Yeah, the outfall task 2. And are these monitor specimen testing, and I'm going to read this out loud. This will be for fecal bacteria, nitrate, orthophosphate, oils, grease, and metals of zinc, lead, and copper. Are these the same type of monitoring analysis that was done prior to this continuation of work, or are these additional?
These are additional constituents that we've been monitoring for. The study that we did was limited to fecal indicator bacteria, E. coli, Enterococcus, and total coliforms. So we didn't look at, what we encountered when doing that study is very often people would ask us questions about contaminants generally entering the harbor, and we don't have data to be able to answer that. We can talk about what we've learned about inputs from the landscape coming into the harbor, but we don't have any numbers associated with any particular constituents, except annually we partner with the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary to monitor water quality at certain outflows during the first big storm event of the year, and that samples for a number of constituents. But it really only tells you part of the picture. It tells you what's coming down from the landscape after a long period of accumulation. It's not necessarily your baseline data or your seasonal data or really telling the full story, but there are some data from that for a number of these constituents.
I'm particularly would like to ask about the orthophosphates. Are you going to be testing for other types of phosphates, or the RCD decided on one type of phosphate? Because my experience with water quality issues is that phosphorus, there's many types of phosphates that will affect marine life in an ocean environment, and whether it's specifically identified with an orthophosphate or not, or else should we be looking at other types of phosphates that maybe from your experience with the Monterey Bay Sanctuary outfalls, that you've probably seen other types of phosphates that could be used for analysis in the harbor?
That's definitely something that we can look into, but orthophosphate is what's typically monitored in freshwater environments, especially when you're monitoring an outfall that flows to marine water. Every study that I've seen in this area in California in general that looks at a basic nutrient analysis, which is nitrogen and phosphorus, uses orthophosphate, but there are other forms. We could look into specifically what that would tell us and if it would be beneficial, but I would say we're pretty safe with orthophosphate. The first flush event with the sanctuary uses ortho. Every study I've ever seen here uses orthophosphate.
Because I know that with this tremendous concern of what's called dead zones, that they do flow from, or as a result of flow from a freshwater into a saltwater environment, is that phosphorus is a major part of the portfolio of the contaminants that are shown up in the analysis for these dead zones. So that's why I was wondering if this could be maybe expanded into other types of phosphates.
I think that orthophosphate is the most appropriate form to monitor for that, but I can double check.
Okay.
We could certainly look into it. I mean, this is a pretty standard profile of constituents that you would monitor for those kinds of things. But we can check into that. And one of the things I want to sort of underscore is that we are not a consultant firm that's bidding on a project. We're another special district, and we see ourselves as a partner to you. We're not interested in nickel and diming. We're interested in helping. And we were formed for the purpose of assisting landowners. So if there's anything along the way that, really better addresses your goals and, your mission related to resource protection, we'll figure out a way to do it.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Because I do have a public comment that I want to get to before the vote.
Yes, I have.
I have questions too.
Okay.
I'll defer to Commissioner Brennan.
Okay, Commissioner Brennan and then Commissioner Holsinger.
Okay. So I'm wondering if you could, since we haven't seen you guys in a while, and I'm glad that more visits are included in this proposal, wondering if you could give us an update on how it's been going with the training and testing that's been going on for, how long has it been now?
Since March 2013.
Okay, so it's been a while.
Yeah, a year.
Yeah, just wondering how that's working out.
Yeah, it's been going well. We've been doing monthly sampling in the Inner Harbor. It started off with 5 sites, and then you guys amended the contract a while ago to 8 sites. And the water quality has been, we've only been looking at fecal indicator bacteria. So actually just enterococci, because we can process those samples ourselves. And the data has been really good. We haven't really seen any exceedances over the water quality objective put out by the Regional Water Board. We have probably 3 months maybe out of the, I guess, March, April, May, 14 months, and those are during storm events. So, I mean, we know kind of why we're seeing hits, because you have a lot of water coming down the streams and out the outfalls, picking up contaminants along the way. So there hasn't been any red flags or anything alarming so far in the data.
And then also, in addition to the data, I think another benefit that's coming out of this is working with the staff in the harbor, and the cross training that sort of happened. I feel like they're very passionate about this and feel a sense of stewardship and responsibility. And they've also, I think, trained us a little bit about our messaging. We can be a little bit technical and wonky sometimes. And so, understanding different ways that people own the water quality issue, I think, has been valuable for us also. So I think there's been some mutual learning that's gone on.
Great. Yeah, I've heard positive things from the staff about the program. So it's good good to hear that it's working well.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more specifically about, there's some language here, let's see, about the outfall locations and increasing the outfall locations, and how frequently specific outfall locations will be tested for reasons based on some are dry some of the time, from what I read, and then some are always wet.
Well, basically, we wanted to try to capture the stormwater coming out of all of the outfalls within the harbor, and so that's 12 outfalls. and it's a little bit hard to gauge when water is going to be flowing out of those outfalls, especially given, you know, the drought that we've been having. It's just not straightforward.
Yeah.
So we have to leave a little bit of room for flexibility. And from the previous study that we did, we have a pretty good idea that 4 of those outfalls are going to be flowing year-round. So that's why I would like to do a dry weather sampling and also a wet weather sampling for those outfalls. And then just to be safe, I would say to try to get the 12 during the first flush when you have the first big rain of the season. And then, you know, if there's opportunities to maybe catch some of those other outfalls, if they're flowing, we'll probably try to do that as well. But it's kind of something that we have to play by ear a little bit, depending on what happens with the rain and just us becoming more familiar with the outfalls as well. We haven't worked with any of the other outfalls except for the 4 that were, or except for, I think there were maybe 6 from the previous study. So that's why there's a little bit of flexibility in there. We also hope to potentially monitor the effects of flushing out some of the systems, which the county has agreed to. So that's another component that we have kind of left a little leeway.
Is that, I had some questions about that. Is that flushing, and I know when I went to one of your meetings previously, not a Harbor District meeting, there was discussion during a presentation, and I plan to be at your discussion tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night?
Yes.
Brought the flyer.
I will be there. But I know there was talk about biofilm because we've been looking for, you know, the culprit.
Right.
And I noticed that was mentioned here in Flushing. Is that something that the county is paying to do? Or?
Yes. It's something that a number of entities have asked the county to do for a while. And I think the county has a fair amount of confidence in the study that we did, and they have agreed to allocate some of their staff to cleaning out some of the storm drains where that for us is the most likely smoking gun for cleaning out those biofilms. They are waiting to see what happens with whether or not you approve this agreement. If you do, one of the substantial things that you would leverage out of this is that they're interested in flushing that storm drain if we have this agreement with you that will give us the ability to monitor the effectiveness of that flushing. So if they're going to allocate resources to doing that, they're going to want some information about how effective that is.
So it's a real partnership then?
It is a partnership, and it's also a pretty big leverage that you would get out of making an investment and doing the monitoring, is that the county will feel more comfortable investing in cleaning the storm drain if they actually know it makes a difference.
Right, that makes sense.
All of this is based on partnership, and similarly with Granada Sanitary District. So Granada was also a partner to the original project, and they had been asking the county for a long time to flush those storm drains. In the early 2000s, when Granada Sanitary District encased their main line to try to stop any leaking, any human inputs, that was found to be pretty effective, and they have consistently communicated to us that they stand ready to do anything else that they need to if there's any indication that they're part of the problem. But meanwhile, they've been asking the county also to flush those storm drains.
Okay, great. Thanks for explaining that. I think I just had a couple other questions. You guys already kind of explained this, but it sounds like we're going to be moving beyond just the testing for fecal water pollution, but also oil and other types of things. So, you know, obviously this is of the utmost interest to the public. Everybody just saw the beach bummer, you know, list of top 10 worst beaches in California. Again, Pillar Point Harbor made the list. You know, I think everybody really wants to know what the problem is and what we could do to fix it. So there are a couple things I was thinking about, which is transparency, how we get this information out to the public so they know about the good work that you're doing and about this agency partnering with the county and with your special district. So I'm hoping that there are going to be some creative ways to provide that information online in a way that like you described your interactions with the staff, sometimes, you know, the science can get pretty wonky. But, you know, I think it's really important for the public to be able to grasp that, you know, what the program is and what's being done. And that way, I think it would provide more public support for the work that your district is doing, as well as the work of this district and the county as well. So I don't know what you guys are thinking about, but I know that you did mention in your presentation communication, recommendations, and it sounded like you were going to be moving more towards providing more public info. Is there something that our district can do to help with that process?
Yes. A couple thoughts about that. One is that one of my biggest criticisms of our district, of the RCD, is that with our very limited operating base, we have not had the capacity to have a website that's the one that I'd like to have. Day before yesterday, the County Board of Supervisors actually allocated in their budget to some funding to the RCD that's not restricted to specific tasks. I always joke that I can get, $1 million for this study but not have a business card, because we have no operating base for that kind of thing, only for projects that are very specific. With the county funds, one of the things that we intend to do is help make information more available by revising our website. So that's the piece that I think that we can take off, is having a better website that's a better portal for this sort of thing. Well, the part that you could maybe help us take on is if we included something in this agreement, funding that was specifically for housing and communicating needs data. So if we wanted to write a communication piece into this, or assume that, just sort of assume that we do have under task 4, the last bullet, is communicating with public and stakeholders. And we were largely assuming that was responding to inquiries, phone calls, emails, but we can certainly, with your direction, focus these resources on doing that through the data. This technical assistance task was written broadly enough so that we can be responsive to your direction and needs.
Okay, great. And then the last thing, sorry to keep you, is aside from the testing, which is absolutely crucial, obviously we need it, and you're actually going to be doing some things to try to correct the problem with, cleaning the storm drains, and this is a big, important move because to date we've only gotten to testing and analyzing, and we haven't actually gotten to the point of taking steps to correct the problem. So I'm really excited about that part.
Actually, that's not true.
Oh, please correct me.
Yeah, that's not true. It may be that you haven't seen a lot of action at the harbor, but we've been doing a lot upstream. Remember that the RCD is rooted in working with private landowners?
Yeah.
And so we've actually been implementing some of those recommendations, but we just do it with private landowners.
Okay.
So, but the sort of, some of the big ticket items of maybe treatment or BMPs at the outflows, you're right, those haven't happened.
And with the RCD, you're right, we don't know what you guys are doing with the private landowners, so you don't get a lot of credit for the work that you're doing because it's private. How shall I put it?
It's not really private. It's not, because it's not confidential. Because we're a public agency, if anybody did a public records inquiry, we would share a lot of these things. But I would say that it's discreet. We don't advertise what we're doing on someone's private property, and that's how we're able to maintain invitations onto properties that have some of the biggest problems when they're not going to invite other public agencies.
I'm wondering if, because it seems like there is a public perception problem, which is the public feels, just like I reiterated, that nothing's really been done, and it sounds like that's not correct. If there's a way to tactfully communicate a different message, if that isn't the correct information, just like you did, if that sort of piece could go into the messaging going forward, I think it would help people feel like we're not at, the beginning of something. We are actually in the midst of something in process.
I agree. I'm looking forward to moving from the study is completed to the good news, things are getting done phase. This will be part of that, and messaging all of that together, because it really is an integrated program of upland and downstream actions.
Great. Well, I look forward to hearing more tomorrow night.
Okay, any other, I'm sorry, Commissioner Holsinger.
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you for coming tonight, and two, we'll enjoy listening to you tomorrow night. I want to echo, first of all, Commissioner Paravano's comments that encourage you to consider testing for other elements, if you will. part of that, as I understand it, is for public safety, for the public that's using the harbors. But the thing that I'm particularly keen and concerned on is the water quality for the benefit of the marine life. So you're looking for contaminants, but I'm wondering, as I'm encouraging you to consider expanding that for the purposes of marine life quality, whether or not you believe or know whether or not any of the testing that you're doing can translate into analysis of the water quality for purposes of its amenability to marine life.
Actually, the previous study that we did was less significant for marine life and was more significant for human contact.
Right.
These constituents get more at some of the aspects of the condition for marine life. That's part of the reason why these are largely the constituents that the sanctuary, the National Marine Sanctuary, monitors for.
Thank you. And just, I have been advocating for and looking for opportunities for the district to partner with some college or university somewhere to do a census, if you will, of the marine life we have in both the inner and outer harbor, and to determine how healthy those inner and outer harbors are for sustaining that marine life and other marine life. And so as you're continuing to do what you do, I hope you'll keep that in mind, that perhaps someday the Harbor District will get to looking at that particular issue as well. And I think probably your data will be one of the first places they'll look at historically, sometime in the future.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah. So, thank you.
Sure. Two questions for you. So should we now, as they're considering this item, should we ask them to consider it with one change being that with the harbor outfall water quality monitoring being the outfalls will be sampled for constituents to be agreed upon, such as, and list these so that there's some flexibility for the constituents? Is that something that?
If I may, Mr. President, I would see no problem in clarifying language in the agreement that would enable that.
Yes,
Pick up on the
I'm
points
totally
raised.
fine with adding flexibility
Yeah, I don't see a
to
problem.
this memo.
I
And
would
then
like
the other.
to, Kellex, the fact that Irene Gogan is looking into this also, she does have that perspective, more of the marine life. So it may be to,
And so does Brittany, actually. That's her master's degree.
oh, good,
Yeah.
good. Okay, well, maybe.
And I'm on the Gulf of the Farallones National Marine Sanctuary Advisory Council, so
Of
it's an interest
course,
of mine,
yeah.
too.
Then, I think in addition to all these values that are added to this proposal of interest, that perhaps you could reevaluate this and kind of fine tune it so that maybe more analysis for a profile for marine life be added, or else, like you said, we may be more flexible.
I think we're going to want to engage about this a little bit more, because I think that you might find that this is the profile for marine life.
I'm glad that we know that now, though, because when I was drafting this, I wasn't sure how much flexibility there was, what the budgeting was and all that, so I kind of did the bare minimum as far as like choosing only three metals. Copper is definitely a big metal that you want to know about as far as marine life, but there are definitely a lot of other things to consider. Now, knowing that that's a big priority for you guys, that's something that we'd be happy to do.
What about cost? So part of what we were trying to do was be cost effective, obviously, and some of these tests are increasing the number, or some of them are more expensive than others. So how would you want to handle that?
Mr. Grinnell.
If I might comment, in the interests of moving forward, staff is definitely recommending that the board approve this item. Excuse me if I may finish.
Yes.
I would suggest that the board consider the proposal before you as it is now, with a direction to staff to work with the RCD to evolve what could be seen as a modest amendment to this, which we would then bring back to you with a potential budget adjustment.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to I want to remind everyone, there is a public comment card that I do want to get to, okay? I don't want to keep just going on and on without having the public comment. So Commissioner Brennan, do you want to do a quick question, then I want to get to the public comment?
Just that I agree that if we are going to make a change, we should do it as an amendment, and that way everyone has a little more time to think about any additional things that we might want to test.
Yeah.
I'm sure that
should
you
work.
know, the scientists that made the recommendations included in this proposal were well thought out, and so I don't think we need to sit here and second guess that right at this moment, but maybe down the road, you know, if we want to pay more and add more to the testing, and it sounds like a good idea, then by all means, it would be great to look at that.
Okay.
One quick comment beyond just saying thank you very much to the RCD colleagues and Brittany for the efforts they've done. You may remember we have the environmental management system proposal I brought back as an update for this coming year, and this is part of that evolvement. Part of this year will also be where we'll be doing a camera inspection of all our storm lines, cleaning of the storm lines, so that once we're building baselines with this project, so that we can really see what we have and what's coming from somewhere else versus just us.
And quick question on that, since you brought this up. This is part of the Clean Marina, is it not?
Exactly.
Okay,
Exactly.
thank you. Just wanted to tether it back, because that's what that is. Okay. I'd like to get to the public comment. Are there any other questions right now before we, okay.
I'd like to hand this out before we step away, may I?
I'm sorry, what is that?
Give him the staff.
Brews and
Okay.
Views.
Okay,
Wow.
thank you.
See you.
Sure, I'll pass these out.
Thank you.
Okay. And thank you again for presenting tonight and taking the time. And, you know, really this is about partnership. I've heard that word used a lot tonight. And it's a partnership between the district and the RCD, partnership between your staff and the training of our staff. And so, I mean, this is just really a win-win for all of us. Again, back to Clean Marina, because that's what this is ultimately about. So thank you for your partnership and your continued work with us. You know, I foresee great things, especially with this project. So thank you for being here tonight. I have a public comment by Nicole David on this item.
Where did the flyers go that she passed out?
These? I'm going to pass them out after public speaking.
Okay, sorry.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Nicole David. I'm from Half Moon Bay. I'm a marine biologist and have been studying water quality and management for many years. And I'm very much in support of more in-depth water quality monitoring at Pillar Point Harbor and in support of the RCD proposal before you. But I would like to recommend having the main focus on fecal bacteria and not a wide range of other pollutants, because $47,000 is really not a lot of money for a comprehensive monitoring study, and I'm just worried that the effort would spread too thin. I think the proposed pollutants are pollutants of general concerns. They're very important for aquatic life, but maybe we could narrow the list down a little bit, definitely include copper because it's highly toxic to aquatic organisms. But I think the focus should be on fecal bacteria, the main focus of this, because that's what Pillar Point Harbor is listed for or included for on a statewide list of impaired water bodies. And it's also ranked, I think, number 8 on the statewide beach bummer list. And that's only based on 2 sites within the harbor. That doesn't even take into consideration the sites that are currently not monitored regularly because of they've been so high in concentrations in the past. So let's tackle this problem and aim for a high quality data set that provides really better information on potential pathways of bacteria and the concentration, and maybe combine that effort with the county data. The Department of Environmental Health is monitoring beaches weekly. And I would also recommend to use the approach that the Water Board and US EPA recommends, to sample each site at least 5 times during a 30-day period and calculate the geometric mean from those samples. I think that would really provide a higher value than the monthly sampling. So I would just like to shift it to a higher sampling frequency and the reduced list of pollutants, So the budget wouldn't even have to change that much. I would really like to see the harbor delisted as impaired and contaminated with fecal bacteria, and I think this high-value data set would bring us a step closer to getting there. So I would like you to encourage to approve the proposal, and maybe with some wiggle room for adjustments there for the sampling design. And I also had a question about task 3, which includes the development of a emergency response spill plan for Pillar Point Harbor. I was under the impression that that was a mandatory requirement for the Clean Marina certification. So I was wondering if you could shed some light on that, because I thought that was already in place for the Harbor District. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, thank you. Okay,
I have a question.
yes.
I'd like to follow up. I forgot to ask about, where did I see it? This is a question for Harbor Master Grindy. Yeah, I noticed in here too that it's one of the items that we have included for work would be how is it described? Emergency spill response. I also thought that we had that already in place. Is this a revised?
It's going through revising everything, making sure everything's up to date and correct, and we're trying to just make sure we're doing everything right, and
Okay.
training.
And so that kind of thing, I would think that the district would have the skills to do ourselves. Could you explain a little bit about the decision to outsource that?
I think bringing it in, Alex and Brittany could probably speak to it as well. It's also bringing in more training that's specific to different areas of the spills, not just that type of spill. If we have an oil spill, we respond to almost everything. But we have new staff that come on board, we have new means to do things, and we want to make sure we're staying up to date with what and how to respond to spills.
So to get access to the current spill response, is that located on the district's website, or how would one find that currently?
I know that we have it in each office. I don't recall if it's on the website off the top right now.
Okay, well, I'd just like to ask staff if I could get a PDF of that. That would be great.
I think we provided that once before, but we sure can.
That would be helpful, thank you. And that sort of thing, it would be really great if in the future we could put that on the district's website, so everybody understands what the process is. And I did want to pick up on the mention about testing more frequently. Now, I'm not a scientist, so I don't know what's standard, but it does seem to me that if we were only testing in one site once or twice a month, that there's such a huge opportunity to miss a spill incident. It would be sort of like looking for a needle in a haystack or something, and it does seem like we could, by testing more frequently, we'd get better results.
You may also note, though, that what they just mentioned was that earlier in the year, we added some testing sites as well, just because we were concerned with, was there any other issues in the harbor, especially around, different docks and such.
I remember that, and I appreciated that we added sites, but I'm wondering how often do we test at each site? Can you answer that?
I think it's once a month on all of them.
Yeah, for the inner harbor,
Yeah.
Would it cost a significant additional amount if we were to test at those same sites? Okay.
Okay, is that it for the questions?
So that's a question for...
You could answer it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear. You don't have to give me an exact dollar amount, but just, try to get a...
Comment. Those are sort of two different cost areas for you. One is the cost for us to process and interpret the data, and the other is allocating your staff to do that. So in terms of the cost to allocate your staff, I don't know.
It would be about, it'd be about $400. It's $400, around $400 per month, or for each sampling event. Right now, we're sampling once a month. That's a pretty rough estimate, but so if we were to increase that to like a weekly sampling, it's $400 a week.
A week, okay. That helps me understand it better. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Move on.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. And I would like to just say, again, thank you for being here tonight. And I myself am not a scientist, so I fully trust your judgment. So that's why I'm also going to support the flexibility of, if we have to change a little here in terms of just adjustments, I fully trust your abilities. Do I hear a motion on this item?
I move to approve the amendment to interagency agreement between Harbor District and San Mateo County Resource Conservation District, water quality assistance for fiscal year 2014-2015.
Thank you. I hear a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
Hear a motion and a second. Can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Olsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Petracco?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
We have a 5-minute break.
Sure. Can we, I would like to have a 5-minute break, and then when we continue, we will be at new business, item 8.
Point of order, Mr. President.
Yes.
We have one more visitor tonight, and so
Okay.
when you resume, if we could then take up item 13.
13, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, 13.
Second.
Motion and second.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, welcome back. We are taking things a little bit out of order because we have guests here tonight for item 13, which is commercial activity permit for Deep Reef Charters. And I'm sorry if I butcher this name. Samuel Sieg? Siggy, I'm so sorry. I knew I was going to do that. Okay, so why don't we have Ms. Harris provide the report and explain what this item is, and then perhaps we can have the applicants say a few words, and then we'll get to the questions by the commissioners.
Okay,
Ms.
so
Harris.
Mr. Sigbu is asking for an independent commercial activity permit, which staff has recommended approval for. He has a fishing charter vessel called No Dough, and we'd like to have that at Fleur Point Harbor. We currently have the authorization for 16 total 6-packs, and currently we only have 9 altogether of the inspected and inspected vessels. So we definitely have the room to have another commercial activity permit. He has, as Mr. Siggy states in the lovely letter, hopefully everybody had a chance to read it, it was a great letter, that he has spoken with the deputy harbor masters and recognizes his obligations and is looking forward to seeing him in Fleur Point Harbor. So if he would like to come up and say a few words or answer any questions for you.
Thank you guys very much. Just like to first say, wow, what a incredible job you guys are doing. It's my first time here. Just mind-blowing. So I actually have been a part of Fleur Point Harbor for a majority of my life. I used to commercial fish out of there. I used to work with some of the fishing vessels when I was younger, and just through a lot of hard work and dedication. Now it's my turn to be the captain.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome. Any questions?
questions?
I'm curious about your operation. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're offering people?
Okay, well, what I'm offering people is not the opportunity to just go down to the harbor to buy fish. I'm offering them the opportunity to actually buy the fishing trip, to go experience the beautiful Northern California coastline. I mean, I love our coastline. Experience the harbor, experience the hunt, the seek, the goal of achievement, and to the opportunity to feed their families, with their bearings, things that I like to do.
And so how many people can you take out at a time?
I am currently licensed for maximum 6 people.
Okay.
I have a 30-foot vessel. It's an older vessel, newer upgrades. Specifically bought the older vessel for the comfort reasons. hard, strong, hand-laid fiberglass, good old American hardware craftsmanship.
And so where can we find your boat? What slip are you looking?
I've been for the last about year on walkway number 5, over on the north side of the harbor.
Yeah.
I guess you call it the gated community. It's a real nice area. A lot of friends, lovely people there. It's almost like a new family and home again.
Okay. And are you, how are you advertising? I'm just curious. Like,
Right now, because I have no approval from the harbor, I'm not advertising anything. Right now, I'm still just taking friends and family out sport fishing every day. Just, hey, you guys got nothing to do? Let's go fishing. Can I get some pictures for when I get my approval and I get my website running? Please. So that's.
You're going to use a website to get the word out and.
Yeah, eventually the website will be up, which would be debriefscharters.com. Eventually, I would like to get like maybe a banner or something for the side of the boat, since there is a lot of foot traffic down that pier walkway. I currently and have been cleaning all of my fish on at the cleaning station on the pier, and I was just surprised at how much energy and is generated by a nice chest full of fish. So I would like to have a banner. Really not much advertising at the harbor besides the banner. But I do have friends, that would like to advertise for me through their websites, through hotel binders. Like my friend's father runs an upscale hotel out in Santa Clara. He says he's always getting people asking, hey, where can I get a quick fishing trip? I'm in town 2 days. Mm-hmm. So, he would like to put some of my flyers in the hotel binders. So, I don't really want to walk around passing out flyers to all the tourists. I'd rather be fishing. So that's why I would be doing some part-time commercial fishing under the open access. So days that I'm not charter fishing, I can still generate income.
I see. Well, you sound excited about it.
Oh, I've worked hard. I started fishing when I was 2 years old. I've been obsessed with fishing since I was about 4. And, after running a couple very successful construction businesses and, pretty much breaking my back, it's now, even though I'm working, it's almost like a working retirement. So I'm kind of happy. A lot of people my age don't get to experience something like this. So I do consider myself very, very lucky.
Great. Thank you.
Is this your first charter suitable boat, or have you had others comparable to this?
No, first charter suitable boat. I've was fishing. My own personal boat was an old 18-foot boat. Fished it when I was younger. Still went pretty much where the charter boats went, because my old motto was the big fish follow the little fish, the charter boats follow the big fish. I follow the charter boats. So now I'm finally a charter boat. A lot of hard work, a lot of money invested, and this is just the start. The way I feel. I'm comfortable where I'm at now. We'll see what happens over, the next 5-10 years or so. But I would like to upgrade. Everybody likes to upgrade.
Thank you.
Mr. President, I would move to.
Oh, there's one more question. Sorry, Mr. Caravano.
This is so great. Thanks for coming and giving us this proposal. And thanks for also sharing your story. And it's nice to see your passion for the ocean and fishing. In your letter, I wasn't clear to the location of Walkway 5.
Okay, so when you enter the harbor and you're looking straight down Johnson Pier, the north side of the harbor, or I guess they consider the liveaboard side, that's where my vessel is. So where the walkway to the fishing pier is, the public fishing pier, my boat is the last dock space in between the stone jetty and the fishing pier.
Okay, and so it's probably A, B, or C docks.
See, you have A, B, C. I'm on the walkway to the right of A, B, and C.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
And I'm actually just before walkway.
Okay. So then that gets another question. In terms of entrance for your vessel, for your passengers, how is that going to be arranged?
As the way it's been going for the last year, just taking my friends and family fishing, they park in the appropriate parking. I'm usually at the boat, getting the boat ready. When they get there, I meet them at the gate. We walk them down the boat. We load the boat, give everybody one last chance to use the restroom, and then we head out. At the end of the day, basically we dock the boat. we pull the gear off the boat, people start marching their gear up, we walk back, we take quick photos of all the fish, with the vessel in the background, and then from there, we all journey over to the fish cleaning station to clean and divvy up the fish.
Good deal. Great, thanks for explaining that.
Mr. President, I would move approval of commercial activity permit for the deep sea charter San Jose.
Second.
Okay, I hear a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Bolsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Garvelia?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye.
Great.
Motion carries, and thank you so much for doing business with our district.
Thank you guys. I mean, like I said, I've been there my whole life, and I just love it. And all this time I was doing construction, couldn't think of nothing but the ocean. So thank you guys very much. Anything you guys need, you guys know where to find me. Please feel free to ask.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We are back to item 8, bills and claims in the amount of $1,606,668.67.
Mr. President,
Treasurer.
and the members of the commission, I would move approval. I've reviewed the bills and claims and would make a motion to approve the bills and claims in the amount of $1,606,668.67, which I'm sure you'll observe includes a $1.3 million payment on our debt service.
I hear a motion. I hear a second. Any questions?
I have a couple questions.
Okay.
So I noticed that there's a amount of $11,800 for Dornbush Associates. And I had sent an email, I don't know, a week or so ago to the general manager asking if their report that apparently he hired them to produce was available and if I could get a copy of it. Haven't gotten any response at all from the general manager. So I'm wondering, we're paying them and that would indicate that there is some work product for the payment. I'd like to know what that work product is and why the board hasn't been presented with it.
Yeah, Mr. President, that's a progress payment. The work is still in progress.
Oh, okay.
They're still working through. The report is not ready yet for review, but it will be coming.
And I know that at our last meeting, you said that the report was definitely going to cost less than the minimum, or less than the amount the general manager is allowed to spend without board approval. So we're not looking at a lot of additional cost, is that correct?
That's correct.
So it's going to be under $15,000?
That's my understanding at this time.
Okay. I really wish that this had come before the board, so I just want to reemphasize that I believe that this relationship with this contractor should have come before the board, so we have a better idea of what it is that they're doing. And then I also noticed that there is $7,122.50 for JJA CPA Incorporated. I'm assuming that that was for this ongoing fish buying fee audit, but if it's for some other thing, I'd like to know what.
Not the regular audit?
I would have to check.
I'd have to double check, but it could be for the regular audit that they're going to be doing.
Oh, so it might be for both, or we don't know?
I'm not 100% sure which. I know they were in the office at the beginning of June, so.
Well, I'm interested in finding out what the cost is going to be for the fish buying fee audit. So I'd like to get the copies of invoices to review for that particular
Well, we haven't-
audit.
They've been able to do anything yet, so as soon as we have them, we can get them.
That would be great. And then I noticed also on here that there is a $6,092.30 amount for Dave Warden, and I assume that that's, it says reimbursed building expenses. I assume that that $6,000 was for inspection reports for the building that the district declined to purchase in El Granada. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Are there additional expenses associated with that real estate potential transaction that are coming, or is this the total sum of what the district is paying for that engagement?
I'd have to get back to you on that.
Okay. If you could via email, that would be great. Do I need to send an email request, or is that going to come?
I'm taking a note. You'll get it.
Okay, thank you. And then I noticed that the employee appreciation dinner is included here for $3,434.25. And I just wanted to mention, for the public's interest, because I know the public has asked about this before, that the wine at the event was not purchased by the district. So I just wanted to clarify that. It was a gift from one of the assistant harbor masters, a very generous gift. It was not purchased by the
And
district.
one of the commissioners.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's new information for me. By one of the commissioners, I'm sorry?
Yes.
Which commissioner? I assume it's Commissioner Holsinger?
I think it was stated at the dinner. It was stated.
Well, if you
Mr.
were-
Holsinger and Mr. Draper.
Oh, I didn't hear that. You know, it was like an echo chamber.
I know it was bad. We apologize for that. We're gonna do better
So,
next
sorry I didn't hear that.
No problem.
And then last thing is, I noticed that we have $11,202.75 for Aronson Dickerson Cohen Land Zone. And I'm assuming that probably isn't their last billing. Is that correct?
That's correct. There will be another bill for the services this month.
Okay, thank you. That's it. Oh, one last thing. Since I am not able to review bills and claims, I will be voting no. As I've stated before, I really would like to review bills and claims, but at this time, I have not been allowed to do that in an acceptable location. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, there was a motion and a second. Can I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Brennan?
Opposed?
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Carvana?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye. Bills and claims have been approved. So we are now at item 9, which is authorization to pay bills and claims occurring between June 19, 2014 and July 15, 2014 in an amount not to exceed $395,000. Can we please explain what this is about for the members of the public out there who don't know what this particular piece is about? Mr. Grinnell?
In situations where the Harbor Commission has chosen to cancel a commission meeting, that leaves a time gap wherein bills and invoices that the district receives in order to be paid in a timely fashion needs this kind of advance approval so that the bills can be paid. For example, this happens for this time when there was no meeting because of the July 4th holiday. Another time when this happens is Christmas. So basically, in acting on this recommendation, the board is enabling staff to continue to pay bills on a timely fashion.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. I have a question. Are there questions on this item? Okay, do I hear?
I really didn't understand that. Could you explain that again slightly differently?
Okay. If this doesn't pass, we won't be able to pay a bunch of bills until it is much later. There might indeed, depending upon what kind of invoice it is, there might be a penalty payment due because of late payment. And so all this does is authorize staff to pay bills during a period when there is no board meeting at which you would otherwise be approving these. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question, actually. Well, actually, yeah, let me just ask a question before we have the motion. We do this all the time, okay? I mean, it's like, this comes up, and maybe I'm hypersensitive to this particular issue, but this is something that happens regularly. And you just said it, Mr. Grinnell, this is going to happen in December, right? I'm going to really be looking to the strategic planning when we plan, how we do our processes and policies, how this doesn't have to keep coming before the board. I mean, I'm going to look to the strategic plan to help resolve this issue so that this doesn't keep coming back and that we somehow empower staff, since we know this is going to come up again in December, that if there's a way that this could just be, that staff is empowered to just approve this. I don't know if there is, maybe legally there isn't, because of the amount of the dollar amount, it's $395,000, but this keeps, I mean, this just keeps coming back over and over again, so.
If I may, Mr. President, in the interim, toward trying to get clarity on this, would you like staff to explore that and maybe report back to you
If we
about
can,
what
I mean,
the legal
again, I don't know.
framework
Maybe,
is for that?
sure, maybe the dollar amount is such that, but I just wanted to put that out there. That's where I'm coming from, because this thing's going to keep coming back twice or 3 times a year, and we know, I mean, we can almost expect when it's going to come back and approximately how much it's going to be, so.
Well, indeed,
just saying.
historically, it's happened at 2 points. One is
Okay.
July 4th, the other is
Okay.
Christmas.
Okay, I'm putting it out there. This is not a debate or anything.
Yeah.
I'm just putting it
Yeah,
out there.
no,
Okay,
understood.
so
Understood.
I'm just trying to streamline our agenda and keep us moving forward in an efficient and well-oiled manner. Commissioner Brennan.
And I appreciate the, where you're coming from. I think you were trying to streamline the meeting. I appreciate that. But I think that because the amount is over the $15,000, which we have allowed the general manager to spend without our approval, that we cannot authorize, we can't just pre-authorize indefinite spending by the staff. We have, that's our job as the board.
Of course.
So I don't see how we could possibly defer to staff for spending, close to $400,000. Doesn't seem like there'd be any way around that.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm open to learning new things. I just, I think, as a board, we better stay in control of the purse strings.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you. It's just that there are some municipalities that do have those policies. That's why I just wanted to put that out there. So, okay, moving right along, was there a motion in a second, or was there a motion even? I think that's it for the questions, right?
I would move to approve the authorization to pay bills and claims in the amount not to exceed $395,000.
Okay, I hear a motion. Is there a second? Okay, a motion and a second. So let's have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Olsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Carabano?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye, motion carries. So item 10, bad debt write-offs. That always makes me that title. Mr. Grinnell, bad debt write-offs. Can you explain what that is and then
Yes,
introduce this item?
this is a annual item that comes at the end of a fiscal year. There have been a few years where we've had 2 of these things spread out over a broader period. But basically what it is that there are, in spite of staff efforts to obtain 100% of collections, there are situations where that's not possible. And typically what these are boaters who have not been paying their bills.
Okay.
For one reason or another. A lot of them end up broke and are unable to pay. Others simply walk away from their boats, and so they not only don't pay but abandon the boat and leave it for the district to deal with. And so there are procedures that we go through to try to deal with these situations. We have provided some information to the board in the past about this. But basically, to get to the point here, this is this fiscal year's write-off request. And if you've gone through this, you will see some of the detail back of it, such as the fact that many tenants that are subject to stronger enforcement efforts don't have the ability to pay and haven't removed their vessels, and they leave behind a debt. In fact, some of these boats we end up trying to dispose of using grant money from the state. So it's a big, long process that's complex. But the bottom line fiscally is that there's a point where we simply don't feel that we're able to collect the debts. We do have a new collection agency, which is quite vigorous, and we're beginning to see some responses, but time will tell how much of this. But basically what this does is help to clean the books.
Okay, thank you.
With this.
Thank you. It sort of helps in accounting purposes. Yeah, I think I just react because the title, whenever I see the word bad in the title, I'm kind of like,
Yes,
oh my
I
God,
think in the
bad.
future we would say what's on the memo itself, which is write-off request.
Thank you. Okay.
I think that's a little more.
Thank you for that explanation. And yeah, I think I always react when I see the word bad in the title. So, commissioners, what is your pleasure on this item?
I have some questions.
Okay, let's, Commissioner Brennan, your questions?
So, it would be helpful when we see this request for bad debt write-off, or whatever we're calling it, if we got some information about, and maybe I'm missing it here, how much of what the percentage is of tenants not paying, just so we have a better picture of how widespread this problem is and how serious the problem is. To me, the idea of writing off $82,964.11 is not very appealing. And if I had to do that with my own business, that would definitely put me out of business, especially every year, which seems to be what's happening. But it would be, helpful to see some sort of a chart where we can see what we paid and or what we wrote off, for maybe the last 10 years, so we could see if we're improving our collections effort or if our collections effort is actually getting worse, and if the problem's getting better or getting worse.
Yeah, actually, if I might say, I believe, and I can confirm this with finance, but I believe generally it's about only 3%. And in this particular situation and instance, the great majority of this amount comes from only 3 or 4 tenants. So in terms of numbers of actual people, it's a lot less than you might think.
That helps put it in perspective, and I did see that you have attached the account information as Exhibit A, and I do appreciate that the staff put that report together, because that to me was very helpful to get a picture of how few tenants, but obviously there are a few that are really behind, because we've got one for $11,970, another one for $9,836. These are at Oyster Point. The problem seems to be less of an issue at Pillar Point Harbor, which is not what I expected, since Pillar Point Harbor is such a much busier location for the district. I would have expected the reverse. But I see at Pillar Point Harbor, although we have a lot fewer and we have a lower dollar amount, we've still got somebody for $12,994, $7,487, $5,092. So I guess what comes to mind is, how do we get to that point where they owe us that much money and they haven't been evicted? Or
Well, the simple response is that in fact, more recently, with our new finance director and new harbor master, we've been able to make much more vigorous attempts and more successful attempts to improve the collections, improve the rate of collections and the amounts. And for certain real problem vessels, we've had to turn to our legal counsel for assistance in trying to either obtain funds owed or to obtain possession of the vessel. And I can say that some of the increased legal fees have come from efforts to actually improve our whole collection and disposition of these vessels. So that's what's going on there. And we're hoping that as we basically clear out these vessels, the new procedures that we're doing, including credit checks and requiring deposits, especially for people who want live-aboard permits, to, you know, as they come in as new prospective tenants, we try to reduce the potential for delinquency.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify. What kind of sometimes makes it a little higher than one would think it would be, because if we had like an apartment building or a storage unit, you would do maybe 3 months of charging, and then you would just lock the thing up and sell the stuff, and that you would have only charged them 3 months. Whereas here, we have a longer process that we have to go to in order to stop charging somebody. And so we have the 30 days, 60, the 90, then it goes. We cannot stop charging until it goes to lien and we have sold the boat. So that's why it kind of adds up for a long period of time.
It's a legal
because
issue.
We don't have a choice but to keep charging. Even though we know we probably won't get the money, technically we have to keep charging. We can't just say, oh, no, we're not going to. And that's why it, maybe after 3 months, we know, oh, this person is gone, or they're this, or they're that. We may end up still charging for another 3 or 4 months. So that's why
I appreciate
The other piece too is that you have two kinds of boats by registration. Some are documented boats that are federally documented, and some are California registered, where you'd see the sticker on the side with the California year of sticker. And the documented boats, which can be any size, and it also seems like most of the credit unions now are having them financed by going to documentation. Those take up to a year to get rid of. It's just, you're literally, your hands are tied by the federal courts. It's just another fun time in trying to deal with it. You know?
So a lot of red tape.
A lot of red tape.
Okay. Well, thank you for explaining that. And I did notice in this report that it mentions that the district is going to require credit checks, and that seems really, really important. And then also, of course, the deposits. So with the credit checks, it sounds like that's something that's already been implemented, or?
I believe it already has.
Yeah, it's happening.
Yeah, I remember hearing about it about a month ago, but I just don't remember if it started or was going to start.
Or was going to, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we just.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Could you guys, just whoever knows about this, explain this program with the state that's mentioned here?
What happens is I did that in another place I worked a while back. You put in with the state of California, if someone owes you money, you can send it to the franchise tax board, what's called the offset. And you can let them know that these people owe you money, and if they get a tax return, we will get our money out of that tax return. So it's an offset from a tax return.
How long?
We'll sign up for the program.
Oh, good. So once we sign up, how long does it take to kick in?
Well, hopefully, we're going to sign up, and it'll kick in the new tax season that's coming up in January. So
Great.
We hope to be on board with
by January.
Some money by January.
And there's a lot of other steps too, just things of where they may not be able to register their boat again, and they may also even be restricted from registering their car.
So it's a real incentive to get them to pay. Okay.
Yeah, there's a bunch of things that trigger different other things.
It seems like if we could communicate these new methods to the tenants that up front, that it might give them, I know a lot of people prepay a year in advance, so those people aren't the issue, but for the people that aren't paying, it might raise their slip payment to another level of importance in paying their bills, and I think we might see less of these write-offs.
The harder part, I think, though, too, to remember is that many times your recreational boat type liveaboards and such, a lot of them are very fixed income. Something happens, spouse dies, goes to the hospital, all of a sudden everything stops. And we try to work with people too, because things do happen.
Yeah.
But sometimes even after we work with them, there's another stumble.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on this?
Mr. Grinnell, are any of these debts you propose to write off of people who are still tenants, so that we are in effect forgiving rent?
Well, technically they are. The boat's still in the slip.
So if we forgive this indebtedness by writing it off, does that become then, do we then lose that as a lien against them?
Well, actually, we can still try to collect, even if we write it off. And we were trying with our previous collection agency to do that. They were not very effective. We're hoping to do a little better with our new outfit.
So does that mean we cease collection efforts and cease efforts to get them out as tenants because of non-payment, because their debts are forgiven?
No, this is really just a book, for lack of a better word, a bookkeeping process, this write-off, because we are, in our budget, we have the revenues that we get, and then we offset it. If you see here, we've offset it with accounts that we think we can't collect. Well, what happens is this is over and above that amount, or this is not over and above, but that we've anticipated there's a certain amount of accounts that we're not going to be able to collect when we create a budget. So this is really paperwork, for lack of a better word.
How many of these items are people who are still living aboard in our slips?
That I don't know.
I couldn't answer that without going back to the accounts.
Yeah, I have to go back to.
And why would we, in spite of the budget, why would we want to forgive those?
Well, we're not forgiving it because we're still going to collect. I mean, it's
We're writing it off, therefore it doesn't exist.
so every year what we have to do is, because we have the budget and we had a certain amount that we were going to say we were going to get in accounts receivable. And then we have a certain amount, I think in the budget, there's a bad debt section, right? Let me look at it.
For the most part, most of the
Well, my
boats
point is-
are empty. I walk by them every night, and they're in that trigger mode where we're waiting for either Department of Motor Vehicles or something to say, or the lien company to say, okay, now it's released for destruction or sale.
So they're empty?
For the most part, most of them are, yeah. I can't guarantee without double checking the list, though.
If we approve this, would they therefore be squatters?
That's what I'm working on one right now.
As a squatter?
Yeah, the city of South San Francisco has what's called an anti-trespass process. So I'm working on that with the city police to see if we can actually institute that for squatters. Because, in the harbors, one thing you folks may not hear very often is squatters who show up in their boat and just pick into a slip that looks empty, and all of a sudden, we're dealing with it. No registration, no information. We just had one the other day, and we had to have them go away.
Well, that makes
what they
sense.
do is that's why there was like 3 boats outside of the harbor at Oyster Point, outside the breakwater, that went up on the rocks. They were all anchoring for someplace free.
Yeah, the Oakland estuary was filled with a bunch of those last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real regular problem with everybody in the bay or on the coast.
Thank you.
That owns a marina.
Okay, any other questions
Just that
to
I'm
move this along?
Curious, I'm looking at the budget too, and
Yes, under operating expenses, you'll see where it says bad debt expense. On page number 7. Of 2014.
Well, while they're looking that up, Mr. President, I'm going to move it, make a motion to adopt Resolution 19-14 to approve the bad debt write-offs.
Thank you. Motion, do I hear a second?
I will second it.
I hear a motion and a second. Before we vote, I want to make sure that people get their questions answered.
It's the second one down under advertising, the next one's in the bad debt.
so I see
So this coming year, it's going to be 130.
130,000 is the,
Right, so last year it was a different amount, but this year she's put it at 130. So that's an expense.
well, that gets back to the point though, where I think we really need to look at how much of these bad debt write-offs we've had over, say, the last 10 years, so that we can really kind of hone in on the best solution.
Well, I mean,
I think the thing I would speak to that is US-wide, not just here, is that I don't disagree with what you're saying. The hard part is the economy drove this problem majorly.
Well, I know it's a problem.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's,
But I mean, I'm thinking in the sense of I would see a big spike, spikes doing this right now. but we're not sure yet with a lot of the boats that are out there.
And I'm sure there are all kinds of, economic reasons why things happen. But I think still the board should have an overview, and it's something we should be tracking. And maybe we could track it with your awesome tracker where you have the occupancy
Oh, the
rate.
dashboard thing?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's just another thing we could plug into the dashboard, and it wouldn't take updating that often, because you could just update it,
It might be
quarterly
every
or
couple
year, or
months, but it
however
depends on
often.
what triggers, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I heard a motion and a second. Could I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Terrabonne?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye. Motion carries. So now we are back to item 12, which is Harbor District Commissioners' Health Care Benefits. Ms. Harris, can you please walk us through what this is about?
So this is an update to the memo that hopefully I attached on April 22nd regarding the changes to the Harbor Commissioner benefits. And I was asked to get further information regarding what other comparable agencies offer their part-time commissioners, and then would the Harbor District be eligible for self-pay? So the answer to the first question is yes, we could offer a self-pay program. And the second question I've also answered. If you look on the second page, I contacted some comparable agencies, and North Coast County Water District offers full health care benefits for their board members, and Crescent City offers up to a certain amount per month based on the beginning of the year. The individual commissioner shows what they pay for in their health insurance, and then they get reimbursed. And Mid-Peninsula Water District offers full health care. Oxnard offers a variety of things. And then Westboro, if you see the cost here. And then the other locations, Santa Cruz Port District, Moss Landing Harbor District, Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation, Port of San Luis, Coastside County, Montera, and Granada Sanitary District do not offer any health care benefits to their part-time commissioners. So it goes back to the initial memo, which I gave you the last time, which I attached a copy of, and your options of either no changes to discontinue benefits in future terms of office, which is the board could choose to alter or eliminate one or more of the health benefits offered to commissioners, but any change would not be effective until after the next board election. In other words, would be altered or eliminated, would continue to be offered to commissioners currently holding office, but would terminate at the end of their current terms. And then newly elected or re-elected commissioners would only be entitled to the newly authorized benefits at the next election. And then option 3 would be just to discontinue benefits for newly elected commissioners.
Okay. Thank you for that report.
Options, I'll take any questions. And I got all of this information off of the state controller's website. And I got a few emails.
Thank you, thank you. This is a really good, in my opinion, a very good report, very thorough. I like the fact that you did a lot of research of the other comparable districts. That's very thorough. Thank you. Commissioners.
Well, Mr. President, members of the commission, I've looked long and hard at the whole idea of benefit picture. And we do seem to be somewhat in the minority. Not that that's necessarily a reason to vote for or against something. However, I'm of the opinion that the members of the commission, not all of us, but those who receive medical benefits, may have run for office with the idea of medical benefits being part of the benefit package and the incentive to hold public office. That's certainly a strong possibility with a couple of commissioners. However, I think if we're going to curtail medical benefits, which now have become quite expensive, I think we have to understand and appreciate those who sit on this dais with the idea that they have medical benefits. So I lean toward option number 3. And just for purposes of discussion, I would put a motion forward to move that the district discontinue benefits for newly elected commissioners, but maintain the current benefits for re-elected commissioners for as long as they remain in office with no breaks in service. And I would so move, Mr. President.
Thank you. I hear a motion. Is there a second on that motion?
For purposes of discussion, I will second it.
Okay, I hear a motion and a second. And I have comments on this. Any questions or comments? Any questions for Ms. Harris on this, or on this motion, on this, any of this, before we vote?
I have some questions.
Okay, I'll go after you. Go ahead.
Okay, so one question is, when a commissioner or a member of this, an employee of the district, reaches Medicare age, aren't they automatically off of the benefits? Can you say that again?
No, they are not.
Really?
Age doesn't have anything to do with it, no.
So they would continue to get the full benefits even
Yes.
after they are of the age to receive Medicare?
Yes. Because Medicare will come in as a secondary.
Um,
I had one of the former commissioners, we paid, my employee's wife when she was on Medicare, and it didn't matter.
Okay.
There's an adjusted rate on the healthcare. I know that operating engineers has an adjusted rate for if there's a Medicare inclusive and if there's not. Teamsters, I haven't had anybody get that far, so I don't know whether there's an adjusted rate for the employees. But I know with operating engineers, if you have, let's say you have Kaiser, but you have Kaiser as a over and above a certain age, you're going to pay a different rate than if you were Kaiser of this age. You know, Medicare eligible or not. So our cost would be different.
Okay. So do we currently have anybody receiving Medicare and also receiving the health benefits that works for the district?
No.
Okay, so that was a past
Yes.
situation?
That was past commission.
So none of the commissioners that currently receive the health benefits qualify for Medicare yet?
Don't know, I haven't asked their age, but I don't go around asking.
What's the age requirement for Medicare? 67?
Yeah, but I don't ask. It's not,
So,
not anything I'm supposed to do.
Okay, so a commissioner can be taking Medicare and getting...
Medicare's going to know.
And what's the maximum benefit is 22,000 for a commissioner?
1638 times, yes, 12.
I'm sorry?
1638 a month times 12.
Okay. But there's a range, right? Some commissioners are receiving more
Yes,
than others?
yes.
And so what's the minimum that you can receive in benefits?
400 per month for our policy.
400 per month,
Yeah, that would be the option.
which you could apply to any healthcare provider you wanted?
Correct.
And then the maximum you could receive again is?
Is if you sign up for healthcare.
Which, and what do we pay them?
$1638 per month.
$1,600
$38 per month.
per month per commissioner. And in Teamsters, what about the other, isn't there another option?
Reimbursement.
Well, I thought commissioners had an option between two different.
You can get operating engineers, you can sign up for Teamsters, and then you can get the $400 payout, or you can choose to be reimbursed.
And how much does operator engineers benefits cost per month?
Sorry.
That's okay.
I knew I had it here somewhere. Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. I thought I was knowing what I was doing. Okay, for the single, it would be $639 per month, and then up to family coverage would be $1538 per month.
Okay, $1538 per commissioner.
And that would pretty much be just a single plus one. I think it would be more if it was a single plus two. I think it's up to $2,000 per month.
Okay, so the total amount, because I know you've got total amounts on your chart here, which is helpful. amount of healthcare benefits. Oh, I see, you've got up above that, you have the 16, you have, oh, wait, you don't have it totaled. So can you give me the total per year?
19,656.
19,656
For Teamsters.
for Teamsters.
18,456 for operating engineers at the maximum, at the family code amount.
So you could receive $18,456 in health benefits per year, plus you could receive Medicare on top of that.
Well, you don't,
I'm just trying to understand how it works, because I
yeah, but
don't.
you're not getting double covered. I mean, there's Medicare is, it's kind of hard to explain what, yes. But that's not my call.
Right,
It's not my business how old somebody is.
Okay.
If they have health insurance or they don't have health insurance with us, and I can't make a decision about whether or not they're old or not old. I cannot go up to somebody and say, you shouldn't take our Medicare because you're over a certain age. I cannot do that, period, end story. I'm not even gonna go down that path because the Harbor District can get into trouble. It's called discrimination. So we cannot do that. So our only question to an employee is, do you want the health care coverage or do you not want the health care coverage? And if you don't want the health care coverage, would you like to sign up for the opt-out program? They can even decide not to even sign up for the opt-out program. But with the Affordable Care Act, there's different things I have to do because I have to be able to show that they have insurance now. So even the opt-out program has changed a bit because we have to make sure that an employee has health care coverage. And I cannot ask them, oh, by the way, do you have Medicare?
Okay, well, my understanding is that the way some other agencies work is that once you qualify for Medicare, then your health benefits go away. So once you've reached that age, it cancels out the health benefits. And for whatever reason, that hasn't happened apparently with this district. And so what I would ask is if we could get information about that option, because that's something we haven't explored yet. And I think we need to understand that a lot better. Because if we are paying the same amount to somebody who has Medicare as somebody who doesn't have Medicare, I think that's something we need to look at. And if there's a way to save money for the district, we certainly need to, be informed about it so we know what our options are. Now, when I look at this list, I see here that we've got Santa Cruz Port District, which pays 0 in health benefits for their board. We've got Moss Landing Harbor District, which pays 0 for their board health benefits. And we've got Humboldt Bay Harbor Recreation and Conservation District, which pays 0 for their board health benefits. And this district has the most in common with those other 3 special districts as anybody else on this list, because those are all harbor districts. And none of those harbor districts pay 1 cent towards commissioner health benefits. Now, there is Oxnard Harbor District, which does pay a much less generous amount towards benefits. But I don't think they're a good comparison because it's like a major port in the LA area and it's a cargo port. And it's got to be more like a full-time job, I would assume, not just a 2-meeting-a-month part-time special district elected position. So I think we really stand out when compared to the other special districts in the state as definitely being the #1 highest paid special district that is a harbor district in all of California. We are the highest paid. So I just want to make that point. And I did hear Commissioner Tucker's comment about the expectation that when someone ran for office, they checked out the benefits in advance and thought, wow, those benefits look great. I'm going to run for that seat. And now we're talking about maybe reducing the benefits. But I also want to point out that not everybody on this board actually got elected. There is a commissioner here that got appointed, and so it's not like that commissioner had the expectation that they were going to get those benefits, necessarily for an appointment. So I just want to, mention that there's a difference between elected and appointed.
Mr. President, I rise to a point of order.
Yes.
My colleague's time has certainly long time expired.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll
That's
wrap it
true.
up.
No,
All
Mr.
right.
President, I ask you to rule to my point of order, please.
Okay, actually, that's correct. This has been going on for, more than 5 minutes. I know it has. So
I want a couple of seconds to wrap it up because I wasn't given time to wrap it up, and I will wrap it up.
Mr.
So if you
President,
could
I
please.
ask you to rule to my order.
I've ruled no. Okay. So I'm going to comment unless there's other commissioners who want to comment on this issue. Thank you. Is the 5-minute timer running on me? It should be running on me. Okay. Okay. I'm not going to take up 5 minutes, but please make sure it runs. Okay. I just want to say that as a public employee myself who works for a government agency, I have different insights on this, and I'm going to share those right now with you and my own personal philosophy on this issue. Every public agency offers different benefits. Sometimes that's why different people work at different public agencies, depending upon what they offer. Okay, and that's a personal choice. Similar to different governing boards where they offer different things at different times, in which case, if you want to run, you could run, you don't have to. So I just want to add that, I want to preface my comments by saying that. So I really believe that, first of all, I myself do not receive any benefits because I get them from my work. Okay, I get them from my day job. So that's why I do not. But if I didn't, then I probably would consider getting medical benefits from the Harbor District. Having said that, I think that it's very important. This goes back to sort of union, non-union's way of thinking, that you're promised, when you started working at an agency, you're promised something, whether it's medical, dental, lifetime this, or whatever that, whether it's something for your children or grandchildren, you're promised something. And I believe that it's important to fulfill that promise. I don't believe that future boards can suddenly say, okay, well, because times are changing, because times are tough, because I personally don't like it, I'm just going to cut them off completely. I think we have to honor those promises. So going forward, that's why I myself am going to support option 3 to discontinue benefits for newly elected commissioners, which creates a new tier system, which is common lingo for those folks in labor, where you're creating a new tier system so that new people coming in will not have the same benefits, basically, but at the same time honoring the promises we made to people who came into the system before us. That's where I'm coming from, so that's where I'm at. And that's why I'm going to support option 3. Thank you. So there was a motion and a second, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
I do not support option 3, although I do support reducing the benefits paid to commissioners. And I do not
Continue with the vote,
support
please.
option 1,
Please continue with the
2,
vote.
4, 3, the way that they're currently worded. Thank
Commissioner
you.
Brennan, you're out of turn. I'm sorry, roll call, please. Ms. Nixon, I'm sorry for that interruption.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Paravano?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye. Motion carries. Option 3 passes. We are going to discontinue benefits for newly elected commissioners. Okay. We just did item 13. So now we are at item 14, which is surplus Pillar Point Harbor forklift. And that's Mr. Grindy?
Yes, it is. And as you recall, a few months back, the board approved a new forklift for Pillar Point Harbor. And now that it has arrived, that's why we have this one for surplus. So we're asking to surplus this forklift.
Okay, and by surplus, can you define what that word means? Surplus. You're going to surplus.
Typically, we would either sell it or auction it off at our next lien sale or some process where it's public.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
I have a question.
Sure. Commissioner.
Scott, what was the material makeup of the tires?
Oh, yeah. The tires on that one were hard rubber, as I recall, and the new one is soft rubber with a pneumatic tire. And the intent of the difference in change also was to protect the dock and pier more.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, Commissioners, on this forklift issue?
I'll second.
Okay, I hear a motion and a second. If there aren't any questions, could I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Brennan?
Aye.
Commissioner Holsinger?
Aye.
Commissioner Parravano?
Aye.
Commissioner Tucker?
Aye.
President Bernardo?
Aye, motion carries. So we are now, thank you, Mr. Grindy. Item 15, General Manager's Report.
You have my report, Mr. President. I'll take any questions.
Okay, Commissioners, any questions on General Manager's Report, item 15? Okay, moving right along. Item 16, Director of Finance Report, and that's, yeah.
I have one thing to add. I was able to contact the finance director, and she would like me to let you know that you don't write people off if they're still here. If someone is written off, they're gone and put on a list not to be let back in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and please thank her for that comment. And yes, she is most certainly here, even though she's not here with us tonight. And especially thank her for that report, the budget report.
I have some questions on this.
Sure, Commissioner Brennan.
So at the top, it says complete interim audit with JJA CPA. If she could give us some clarity on which audit, if that's the fish buying fee audit?
No, that's not. That's the regular annual audit that the Harbor District, that is done, that the Harbor District has to go through. And so that was just the preliminary interim audit where they came in to do the preliminary work, and then they'll come back again. You'll get the audit results like we did last year, like January, February.
With Mr. Arch, is that correct?
Correct.
It's name.
Yeah.
Mr. Arch.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So is the finance director not working with JJA CPA on the fish buying fee audit? Is that another staff person who's doing that?
No, but that you asked what this completed interim audit meant, and it's not the fish buyers.
Okay, so is she working with them on that other audit?
Yes, they are working on that other audit.
Okay, thank you. And at the bottom, it says, submitted to marine lawyer are collection letters to review before being mailed out for completeness and legally correct language to be included. Is this the law firm that we recently hired that specializes in marine?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. It says applied to State Finance Tax Board Intercept Program for more info, and it gives a web address. Do you know what the Intercept Program is?
That's the one that we talked about when we did the write-off, the Intercept program where the collections were.
Okay, great. That's the name of it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, HR Manager's Report, Ms. Harris. It's back to you.
Go ahead and update. We did order the wax. Hopefully they came today. I haven't heard anything yet. And our plan was that they came today to try to get some of them out within the next 2 days. And then I do have the policy I am working on. Hopefully I'll get that finalized. And then there's also a, oh my brain. The initial thing that we have to pop up. I just lost it. Disclaimer. The Wi-Fi disclaimer. Sorry, my sideways. So those things are, I put them all together. Steve's going to review them, and then I'm going to send them to the attorney for him to understand. So we have all our bases covered.
I'm sorry, what was that last thing? I didn't hear that.
The disclaimer and then a Wi-Fi policy.
Okay, thank you. We like policies. Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
I just have a quick question. So just to clarify, you were talking about Wi-Fi and the rollout is starting with Pillar Point Harbor. Is that still the plan? Mm-hmm. And it's going to be in a limited range to test?
To test the limited range, yes.
Okay.
And as soon as that's up, I'll, send everybody an email so you know. But, before we can even start it, we need the disclaimer and the policy done, because we don't want to get it going without that.
Okay. Do we have a plan in place for rolling out the rest of it?
Not yet.
Okay, well, since this has taken a really long time, I'm wondering if maybe we could go ahead and get that going so that we have, you know, the next phase sorted out. That would be great, and I really appreciate everybody's effort on the Wi-Fi. Thank you.
Okay, moving along to operations, Oyster Point Marina, Pillar Point Harbor, Harbor Master Grindy.
You have my report, and as you recall, the dashboard comes out once a month, just if you're looking for an attachment.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner Holsinger.
When is the next time when we will know whether we're receiving Clean Marina certification at our two facilities?
I'd have to check to get back to you on that,
Okay.
but I can get back probably the next, well, I guess we're about a month away from our next meeting, but I can get back to you on that.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay, Commissioner Brennan.
I was reading back through sort of the history of how we got a payment from WETA for the ferry terminal location at South San Francisco and, or in South San Francisco at Oyster Point Marina. And I was noticing that they made a one-time payment, which went directly, I believe, to the Division of Boating and Waterways in exchange for 2 docks. And I wondered, I don't think I've ever heard how many slips we lost when we lost those 2 docks. Do you happen to know?
Not off the top. A lot of that was happening before I got here.
How many what?
Slips.
How many slips we lost?
We lost.
Oh, I don't remember.
Because our numbers changed in our dashboard counts too.
Yeah.
I'd have to look back in the file to see.
We can
what-
find out.
Yeah,
Couple
it's just a
hundred, I
number change, I remember that, but I don't remember what they were.
So it was reported in the dashboard?
I think it was about a couple of hundred, because we
Yeah.
used to have 600 and it went down to where it is
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, it was before I even got here and started doing the dashboard that had all already happened.
Oh, it had already happened?
Also,
Yeah.
there were several other slips on a couple of the other docks that were taken off because they widened the channel.
Yeah, and then they added back slips on the ends of 14 through 11 with the dock attenuators that are the concrete ends before the ferry goes by.
So some extras were added in?
Yeah, so there was kind of this plus and minus
It's
process
about
going
a
on
couple
as they
hundred,
rebuilt.
just a couple hundred,
Yeah.
a little less than that. Okay.
So, just so I understand, so when we gave up those slips and we got the however many millions that went to pay down the Division of Boating and Waterways loan, did they also agree to make an annual payment to the district for losing the slips, or was it just the one-time payment?
No, it was a one-time payment of $3.66 million, which they calculated, and it went to 100% toward retiring principal on the loan.
Okay, thank you for explaining that.
Any other questions for Harbor Master Grindy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they projected the revenue.
Thank you. So now we're at item 19. No committee reports, agenda setting, commission statements and requests. Commissioners?
I'd just like to mention that the Half Moon Bay Brewery is, or I should say Half Moon Bay Brewing Company, is hosting the Brews and Views Forum, which they do fairly often, tomorrow night. So that's Thursday night. It starts at 6 o'clock. It goes to about 8 p.m. And the guests are Kellix Nelson, who was here earlier this evening from the Resource Conservation District. She'll be talking about water quality issues, water pollution, those types of things, as they relate to Pillar Point Harbor specifically. And Kellix will be joined by TJ Gauthier, who is one of my neighbors and also a board member on the Resource Conservation District. And he will also be speaking, and it should be a very interesting evening. It's a fun event, so if you can make it 6 to 8 p.m. Thursday night. Thanks.
Commissioner Paravano.
No, nothing.
Or I should say President-elect Paravano.
Well, thank you. I still have nothing, no comment.
Okay, Commissioner Tucker.
I have nothing.
Okay, Commissioner Holsinger.
Yes, I'd just simply like to let the public know that this coming Saturday, June 21st, is a halibut and striper fishing derby at Oyster Point Marina, hosted by the Coastside Fishing Club. It's a $40 entry fee for people 16 years and over, free entry for those at a younger age. There's free food. There are cash prizes. There's a free rod and reel to the first children under the age of 16 at the weigh-in. There's other special prizes. There's also free raffles. And you can go and register online at www.coastsidefishingclub.com/2014 OPM. And if you're interested in fishing, I'd love to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we get to staff recognition, I would just like to say it has been a pleasure serving as your president for the past year. It seems like the year went by really quickly, actually. We did a lot. I know this has been a busy year. And I want to thank everyone. I want to thank everyone, literally. I want to thank my fellow commissioners for electing me president a year ago. I want to thank staff for putting up with me. I want to thank the public as well. I learned a lot in the past year, and I hope that, that you will be kind to some of the mistakes that I've made, but I really, all in all, had a really wonderful opportunity to learn and to move the Harbor District agenda forward. And I'm very proud of a lot of the things we did in the past year, and I'm more excited the things that are yet to come. So I just wanted to thank all of you. So now we are at staff recognition.
I'll have more next time.
You'll have staff recognition. Yes.
I just have
Mr.
one
Brunel.
overall statement, as this is our last commission meeting of the fiscal year, and that is to commend all of the Harbor District staff for carrying on their jobs individually and together and just doing outstanding work. There's a lot that this little agency has to contend with, and the staff rises to the occasion routinely to handle it in the face of all kinds of obstructions and challenges and so on. I just want to have the record show that you've got a great staff.
Hear, hear. So, thank you.
Mr. President, why does it seem like it's New Year's Eve?
Because it's 9:30? I don't know.
I mean, we know our staff to be perfect and their work to be journeyman-like, and has been for many years that I've had the pleasure of serving. But it's nice to see the manager recognize our hardworking staff. Oh, yeah.
Can never have enough of that. So, okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Thank you. I hear a motion. Do I hear a second? Is there a second to adjourn? No one wants to adjourn?
We don't want to leave the atmosphere.
Come on. So we can send staff home and the public home.
You can always second the motion.
Okay, I'm going to second it.
Sure.
All in favor say aye. Aye. We are officially adjourned. Thank you. All right.